Chapter 4395. Who in the four continents didn't know that Qin Feiyang and the others had the ability to deprive others of their laws? Once they fell into the hands of these people, it would be a fate worse than death. Just thinking about this made the middle-aged man's scalp go numb. No, my qi is shattered, but I can still self-destruct my divine soul? Suddenly, the middle-aged man's spirit was shaken, and he was ready to self-destruct his divine soul. Boom. However, at this moment, wisps of terrifying auras swept across the place. Do you think we will give you the chance to self-destruct? Frenzy looked at the middle-aged man mockingly. The middle-aged man instantly fell into the abyss of despair as his heart trembled. They could even see through his thoughts. This group of people was too terrifying. In fact, under such circumstances, it was not difficult to see through the middle-aged man's thoughts. With his qi destroyed and unable to self-destruct, how could he escape? Naturally, the only thing left was to self-destruct his divine soul. You want to bring him to the Black Tortoise world? The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. Only by being controlled by Long Chen's soul-controlling technique could this person strip the ultimate profound. However, there was no hurry to strip the ultimate profound. After entering the Black Tortoise world, he found Long Chen. Long Chen did not say much and directly controlled the middle-aged man. In the tea garden, Frenzy, the white-eyed wolf, and Mu Qing crossed their legs and drank the divine wine. Qin Feiyang looked at the middle-aged man standing respectfully in front of him and asked, "What's your name?" Dong Deyuan. The middle-aged man answered truthfully. "Are you a member of the Death God Army?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No." Dong Deyuan shook his head. "You really aren't?" Frenzy, the white-eyed wolf, and Mu Qing looked at each other. Since he was not a member of the Death God Army, then who was this person? One had to know. Ordinary people would not dare to pretend to be a member of the Death God Army. The others aren't either? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Dong Deyuan nodded. Then which faction are you from? Qin Feiyang frowned. Dong Deyuan said, "We're all from the second direct family of the Central Dynasty." The second direct family? Qin Feiyang and the other three were stunned. What did he mean? In the Central Dynasty, apart from the main family, there are also the main family and the branch family heads. Our family is said to be the second strongest among all the direct family clans. Dong Deyuan said. I see. Qin Feiyang and the other three suddenly understood. The white-eyed wolf mocked. You guys sure have guts. You actually dare to pretend to be members of the Death God Legion. Aren't you guys afraid that Dong Qingyuan will find trouble with you? Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't dare to impersonate the Death God Army on the spot. But this time, we're thinking for the future of our entire family, so we're taking the risk. Dong Deyuan said. The future of the entire family? The four of them exchanged glances. That's right. Taking Yu Hui and Min Hong away is for the benefit of our family. Dong Deyuan nodded. Yu Hui Min Hong? Madman was suspicious. Yu Hui and Min Hong are the two prodigies of the human race, the owners of the Eye of Destruction and the Eye of Oblivion. I believe you guys should also be clear about the power of the Eye of Destruction and the Eye of Oblivion. As long as we can bring them back to our family, nurture them, and help them find their nemesis so that their battle souls can evolve, then the overall strength of our family will increase by a large margin. At that time, not only will the Emperor not blame us for impersonating the Death God Legion, he might even make an exception and promote our family to a direct family clan. Dong Deyuan explained. So that's the case. You guys are really taking the risk. But you guys probably don't know that they have long been our prey because their nemesis is right beside us. The white-eyed wolf sneered. What? Dong Deyuan was shocked. The white-eyed wolf didn't explain and asked, Did you guys plan this long ago, or did you guys plan it after coming to the four continents? We only planned it after coming to the four continents. After all, when they were in the Central Dynasty, they didn't know about the existence of Yu Hui and Min Hong. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Yes. Originally, we came to the Central Dynasty with the same purpose as the Death God Legion, to eliminate you guys. Although we heard that you guys are very strong, we didn't see it with our own eyes. We thought that no matter how strong you guys are, you would definitely find a chance. As long as we can get rid of you guys, then we will have made a great contribution. At that time, the Emperor will definitely reward us. Even if we don't become a direct family clan, we will definitely be given a lot of resources and become the #1 family clan in the direct family clan. But when we came to the 4 continents, we accidentally found out about the existence of Yu Hui and Min Hong, so we came up with this plan. Dong Dayuan said. Qin Feiyang asked, then are the people hiding in the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan on Mount Supreme, and the Divine Island also from your family? Yes. They are hiding in the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan's territory on Mount Supreme, and the Divine Island to continue looking for opportunities to kill you guys. Dong Dayuan nodded. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other. Finally, the truth was revealed. Even the #1 direct family clan didn't get involved in this mess, but you guys came to the 4 continents first. You guys are quite brave. White-Eyed Wolf said jokingly. Wealth comes from danger. Besides, the #1 direct family clan has already given birth to a prodigy. Their position in the Central Dynasty is very stable, so they don't need to take such a big risk. Dong Dayuan shook his head. Prodigy? Qin Feiyang and the other 3 were slightly stunned and asked curiously, what prodigy? This prodigy is Dong Qin, one of the 5 domains, the owner of the Clear Heaven domain. Dong Dayuan said. Dong Qin? Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other. Wasn't this the woman they had suppressed in the Soul-Sealing Valley? They didn't expect that the family behind this woman was the #1 direct family clan in the Central Dynasty. Although it couldn't be compared to the direct family clan, it was still the strongest existence under the direct family clan. Now, they finally understood Dong Hanzong's intention. The reason why Dong Hanzong was on good terms with Dong Qin was definitely because of the family behind Dong Qin. After all, the #1 direct family clan could also give him a lot of help. Qin Feiyang asked, whose space divine item is Yu Hui and Min Hong locked in now? Dongi. Also, they weren't forced by us. They willingly followed us to the Central Dynasty. Dong Dayuan said. Willingly? Qin Feiyang and the other 3 frowned. Yes. Although they still don't know that their old enemy is by your side, you have attacked Jiang Yunshuang, Ji Shaoi and the others. They are also worried that you will attack them sooner or later. So when we proposed to take them to the Central Dynasty, not only did they not reject, they were very happy. Dong Dayuan said. White-Eyed Wolf frowned and said, it seems that it's not that easy to make them obediently hand over their battle souls. For this matter, let's have a fair competition. Qin Feiyang said. From their current performance, even if it's a fair competition, I'm afraid they won't let us do as we wish. Frenzied Wolf shook his head. If that's the case, then don't blame us for being ruthless. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. He looked at Dong Dayuan and asked, what does Dongi look like? Dong Dayuan waved his hand, and the figure of a black-haired old man appeared. Mu Qing immediately opened his all-seeing eye. Very quickly, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, this person is very smart. He actually chose the furthest route to the Central Dynasty. Generally speaking, under such circumstances, one would definitely choose the furthest route. The people chasing behind would definitely choose the furthest route first. But this Dong Yi did the opposite and chose the furthest route. One had to admit that he was somewhat smart. How long will it take to catch up with him? Qin Feiyang asked. Mu Qing thought for a moment and said, about 5 days. With my current speed, there are still about 5 days? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. Because he took a long detour. Moreover, while we are chasing him, he will continue to escape, so it will take about 5 days. Mu Qing nodded. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then turned to look at the White-Eyed Wolf and the lunatic, and said, why don't we split up? Mu Qing and I will chase after Dong Yi, and you guys go directly to the Serene King Island to find the king of the underworld? The lunatic and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and asked, what happens after we find the king of the underworld? Ask him if he wants to cooperate. If he doesn't, we will directly eliminate him. Killing intent flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Okay. The lunatic nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people appeared in the sky above the sea, including Dong Deyuan. Immediately after. Thus they split up into two groups. Dong Deyuan followed Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Qin Feiyang suddenly asked curiously, Dong Deyuan, how many experts in your family have mastered the will of the heavenly Tao? 25. Dong Deyuan said. What? A second family actually has 25 experts who have mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing were deeply surprised. The foundation of the central dynasty was really not simple. Then how many people did you bring this time? Mu Qing was curious. 20 people. Dong Deyuan answered truthfully. 20 people. There are 12 people in the taboo ocean. Then the god race, the human race, and the purple gold divine dragon race. Don't they still have 8 people? Not bad. Another 120 ultimate mysteries are about to fall into our hands. Mu Qing laughed. Haha. Qin Feiyang also laughed loudly. The more such families there were, the better. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. A huge island stood on the surface of the sea. Huge waves rolled around. 3 figures stood above the island. They were Qin Feiyang, Mu Qing, and Dong Deyuan. Qin Feiyang did not speak, silently looking at the sea ahead. Dong Deyuan stood behind him respectfully. Mu Qing opened her all-seeing eye, constantly tracking Dong Yi's whereabouts. After a while, Mu Qing suddenly smiled, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Dong Yi's current escape route, this is his only way. At most, he will arrive here in less than an hour. All right. Let's intercept him here and give him an unexpected surprise at the same time. Qin Feiyang laughed. The 3 rushed into the island below and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 4396. Whoosh. Above the sea, a black figure activated momentary time and moved as fast as lightning. His expression was particularly cautious. This person was Dong Yi. Splash. Suddenly, huge waves surged in the sea ahead of them. A huge sea beast rushed out of the sea. It was ferocious. Dong Yi's expression changed, and he hurriedly stopped. Don't be nervous. I'm here to inform you. There's an island ahead. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing are hiding on the island, waiting for you to walk into their trap. And there seems to be a companion of yours beside them. The sea beast said. What? Dong Yi's face turned pale. He looked up and could vaguely see the shadow of an island. You'd better take a detour. After saying that, the sea beast dived back into the sea and disappeared. Damn it. Why did this happen? Who on earth fell into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the rest? Don't you know self-destruct? Dong Yi roared and looked around. He made a prompt decision to turn around and flee in the other direction. Min Hong and Yu Hui were the hope of their family's rise. They must not fail. Bastard. At the same time, on the island, Mu Qing was also furious. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was shocked and hurriedly turned to look at Mu Qing. Mu Qing said in a low voice, Another sea beast is informing Dong Yi. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, Haven't the white-eyed wolf and senior brother rushed to the king of Hell Island? Why aren't these sea beasts stopping? Their speed is not that fast. When I calculated the time, it was according to your speed. And the white-eyed wolf and the rest do not have dual wills of the great path. They may not have reached the king of Hell Island yet. Mu Qing said. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Furthermore, judging from the current situation, even if the white-eyed wolf and the lunatic reach the tranquil King Island, they might not be able to find the tranquil Sea King, because all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean are the spies of the underworld king. Right now, the king of the underworld might already know that the white-eyed wolf and the others are attacking the underworld King Island. Mu Qing said in a deep voice. That will depend on his choice. If he really wants to go against us, then I don't mind sending him to hell. Killing intent flickered in Qin Feiyang's eyes. He swept up Mu Qing and Dong Deyuan, and activated the instant of time and dual wills of the heavenly Tao to chase after Dong Yi. They will definitely come after us. What should we do? Qin Feiyang controls 2 wills of the heavenly Tao. I definitely won't be able to escape their pursuit. There's also Mu Qing. As long as Mu Qing is here, they can find me no matter where I run. Dong Yi was panicking. His mind was in a mess. Self-detonation? But what about Min Hong and Yu Hui? Asked the sea beasts for help. However, these sea beasts were not even qualified to be cannon fodder in front of Qin Feiyang. Anxiety and despair almost caused Dong Yi to break down. Bang. True enough. Soon, a terrifying aura surged. He turned his head and his body trembled. He could vaguely see the figures of Qin Feiyang and the other two. Who can help me? Qin Feiyang and the rest kept closing in on Dong Yi. He was almost hysterical. Dong Yi, be sensible. There's no need to continue running. You can't escape. Qin Feiyang's voice could be heard from behind him. Dong Yi's body trembled and he almost collapsed. Finally, Qin Feiyang and the other two caught up with him. Dong Diyuan, it's actually you. Scoundrel, why didn't you self-detonate? Dong Yi roared. If Dong Diyuan self-detonated, then Qin Feiyang and the rest would not know that Yu Hui and Min Hong were in his space treasure. In this way, he would have a great chance to bring Yu Hui and Min Hong back to the Central Dynasty. However, Dong Diyuan was indifferent to Dong Yi's roar. Damn it, they must have been controlled. Dong Yi's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. He stopped and turned around to stare at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, roaring. Don't come any closer, otherwise, I'll take Min Hong and Yu Hui down with me, making it so that you'll never be able to obtain the Eye of Destruction and Eye of Oblivion. Haha. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing immediately laughed. What are you laughing at? Dong Yi looked at the two of them in panic. Do you think we are chasing you for Yu Hui and Min Hong? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and walked towards Dong Yi fearlessly. Ha! You are not doing this for Yu Hui and Min Hong? Dong Yi was stunned. For a moment he did not react. They have the Eye of Destruction and the Eye of Oblivion. What does it have to do with us? We don't have their old enemies around us. Our target is you. Anyone who comes from the Central Dynasty must die. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. Dong Yi could not help but feel afraid when he saw this gaze. No. Stop right there. Don't force me. I will really self-destruct and die with Yu Hui and the rest. Looking at Qin Feiyang, who was approaching step by step, Dong Yi waved his hand in panic and was about to cry. It's okay, go ahead and self-destruct. Just nice, you can also help me get rid of Yu Hui and the rest. After all, their Eye of Destruction and Eye of Oblivion will become a hidden danger to us sooner or later. If you die with them, I should thank you instead. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Dong Yi collapsed on the spot. He could not beat them, and threats were useless. What should he do? How about this? Let's talk. I don't care about Yu Hui and Min Hong, but I admire you. Qin Feiyang laughed. Admire me? Dong Yi was stunned. Yes. There are so many people in your family, but only you dare to bring Yu Hui and Min Hong. This shows that you are a very courageous, responsible person. I lack talents like you around me. As long as you follow me, I promise to give you the best. I will even help you open the door of potential. Qin Feiyang said. What? Dong Yi was stunned. Is this person crazy? He actually said that he will help me open the door of potential? And you might not know that there is a new realm above the sovereign realm. As long as you follow me, I can bring you to this new realm and let you become the strongest person in the world. By then, the Death God army, the direct family, and the Emperor will all be trampled under your feet. Think about it, how impressive is that? Qin Feiyang smiled. A new realm. Dong Yi was completely stunned. Isn't the peak sovereign realm the end of the cultivation path? Why would there be a new realm now? It was also at this moment. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. He activated Instant Time and Dual Will of Heaven Dao at the same time, and instantly landed behind Dong Yi. Dong Yi quivered and hurriedly dodged. But it was too late. Qin Feiyang slammed his palm, and the power of life and death surged out. Dong Yi immediately screamed as his physical body was directly shattered in the void and blood stained the sky. As Dong Yi's physical body was shattered, a spatial divine object also appeared. You lied to me. Dong Yi's divine soul roared and frantically pounced on the spatial divine object, wanting to destroy it as well as Min Hong and Yu Hui who were hiding inside. If I didn't lie to you, would I have found a chance to kill you? You can only blame yourself for being too stupid. Qin Feiyang sneered. The power of life and death rolled out and immediately suppressed Dong Yi's divine soul. Immediately after, he grabbed the spatial divine object. I'm not resigned to this. Dong Yi roared again and again. Qin Feiyang set up a soundproof barrier again, enveloping Dong Yi's divine soul. It was too noisy. At this moment, Qin Feiyang just erased the blood contract of the spatial divine object and dripped blood to recognize it as its master. Then he waved his hand. A man and a woman immediately appeared in front of him. Qin Feiyang. It was Yu Hui and Min Hong. The two of them had already heard the commotion outside when they were inside the spatial divine object. At this moment, looking at Qin Feiyang standing in front of them, they could not help but tremble. The owner of the strongest fighting soul only has this much courage? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. You don't have to humiliate us. Yu Hui roared. Can you blame them for being timid? Ask the four continents now, who is not afraid of you, the devil? Humiliate you? There's really no need for that. I'm just disappointed. Because you are like me, the owner of the strongest fighting soul. But now, you don't even have the courage to face me, and you even want to hide in the central dynasty. Qin Feiyang shook his head. When the two of them heard this, they could not help but clench their fists. Qin Feiyang said, Answer me, do you deserve to have the strongest fighting soul? The two of them were flustered. Fine. Go to the Black Tortoise boundary and stay there. Wait for me to deal with the king of the underworld and the other 10 people, then I'll have a good talk with you. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and directly shattered the two's sea of qi. Then, he sent the two of them and Dong Yi's divine soul to a cultivation room in the ancient castle and imprisoned them. Do you want to chase after the sea beast that tipped us off? Mu Qing asked. There's no need for that. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Let's go directly to the king of the underworld. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. He activated the dual will of heaven and split time, and rushed toward the King Island. The next day, there was a huge island. The two of them rushed into the island like lightning. These two people were the White-Eyed Wolf and Lunatic. We've finally arrived at the King Island. Without the dual will of heaven, we really can't move fast. If it were little Qin Zi, he would have rushed here long ago. When the two of them heard that the island was above them, they lowered their heads and scanned the island below. The entire island stretched as far as the eye could see, like a continent floating on the sea. The mountains and rivers were majestic, and the vegetation was green. However, there was not a single sea beast in sight, let alone the king of the underworld. What's going on? The White-Eyed Wolf was puzzled. Could it be that the king of the underworld has already received the news and left the King Island? Lunatic frowned. Let's split up and search. A cold light flashed in the White-Eyed Wolf's eyes. The two of them immediately split up and rushed toward the depths of the island. Wherever they went, they used their divine senses to search. After an hour of searching, they really did not find a single sea beast on the island. Obviously, the king of the underworld must have escaped in advance. We came all the way here, but in the end we made a wasted trip? The White-Eyed Wolf's body surged with a terrifying aura as he rushed toward the sea outside the island. Lunatic also hurriedly followed. Chapter 4397. In the sea outside the island, other than the raging storm, it was hard to find a single sea beast. In the end, the White-Eyed Wolf and Madman ran millions of miles before they encountered a sea beast. This sea beast wanted to escape when it saw Madman and the White-Eyed Wolf, but it was quickly captured by the two. What a joke! It wasn't easy to find such a sea beast. How could they let it slip away? Speak, where did the Ocean King go? The White-Eyed Wolf asked. I don't know. The sea beast shook its head in horror. Do you want to die? The White-Eyed Wolf's eyes surged with killing intent as he grabbed the sea beast's head. The power of law surged, and the sea beast's head began to shatter as flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Don't kill me, I'll speak, I'll speak. The sea beast roared in horror. The White-Eyed Wolf retracted his arm and looked at it coldly. Last night, the Ocean King suddenly received news that you guys are coming to the Ocean King Island, so he ordered everyone to evacuate the island. The Ocean King went straight to the depths of the taboo ocean. Probably to seek help from the central dynasty, the sea beast said. Seek help from the central dynasty. The white-eyed wolf and madman looked at each other. This ocean king really didn't know what was good for him. The sea beast asked in a trembling voice, "Can I leave now?" "Who else is with the ocean king?" The white-eyed wolf asked. The sea beast said, "The 30 generals under the king of the underworld are all with him." Generals? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. These generals all have the will of the heavens and are the strongest subordinates of the ocean king. The sea beast explained. So many? It seems that the sea beast race is stronger than the beasts and the oceanids. Madman was surprised. Since this ocean king is so overconfident, then don't blame us for being impolite. The white-eyed wolf sneered, looked at the sea beast and asked, "Are there many sea beasts in the taboo ocean that have grasped the ultimate profound of the strongest law?" "Why are you asking this?" The sea beast was surprised. "Speak." The white-eyed wolf roared. The sea beast quivered and nodded. Many. The white-eyed wolf's eyes lit up and asked, "How is it compared to the oceanids and beasts?" "Perhaps more than the oceanids and oceanids combined," the sea beast said. "It can't be. So many. Taboo ocean is a treasure trove?" The white-eyed wolf's eyes to the sea beast. If he could kill all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean, how many ultimate mysteries could he obtain? Get lost. The madman's eyes flashed as he waved his hand at the sea beast. Madman looked at the ingrate and chuckled. "Brother Wolf, it seems like we are thinking of the same thing." But right after that, the white-eyed wolf frowned and said, "Even though there are many oceanic beasts in the Forbidden Ocean, it isn't easy to hunt and kill them because we're unable to open a spatial tunnel in the Forbidden Ocean. This is indeed a problem." Madman nodded. Back in the East Continent, they were able to destroy the oceanids and beasts in a short period of time because they could open a space-time tunnel. No matter how far away they were, they could reach them in an instant. But in the taboo ocean, they could only fly. The taboo ocean was so big. It was easier said than done to search the entire taboo ocean. Moreover, the sea beasts of the taboo ocean were not fools. They would definitely not stand there and wait for them to kill them. They would definitely do everything they could to deal with them. It would be even more difficult to play guerrilla warfare with them. Madman took a deep breath and looked at the white-eyed wolf. "We will discuss this matter after Old Chin comes and meets up with us. Now let's go chase after the king of the underworld. The king of the underworld is about the same speed as us. How can we catch up? We might as well wait for little Chinzi first." The white-eyed wolf shook his head. "Even if we can't catch up, we can still chase after them first. Anyway, we have Mu Qing. When they come to Serene King Island and don't see us, they will definitely use their all-seeing eye to check our whereabouts," Madman said. The white-eyed wolf lowered his head and pondered. Then he nodded and said, "All right. The king of the underworld just left last night. If he is delayed on the way, we can really catch up with him." Whoosh. After the two of them finished speaking, they immediately activated momentary time and rushed toward the depths of the taboo ocean. The next day, in the sky above a sea, Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing and asked, "How is it?" Mu Qing said, "The white-eyed wolf and madman are really not on Serene King Island. They are rushing toward the depths of the taboo ocean. The king of the underworld has indeed left Serene King Island." The depths of the taboo ocean, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, "It seems that the white-eyed wolf and senior brother have also found out where the king of the underworld has gone, so they are chasing after him. Then, are we still going to Serene King Island?" Mu Qing asked. "There's no need to go to Serene King Island. Let's rush directly to meet up with senior brother and the others. In addition, help me check the whereabouts of the king of the underworld," Qin Feiyang said. "Okay." Mu Qing nodded. Although she had never seen the king of the underworld, as long as she knew his name, it would be fine. A few breaths passed. Mu Qing raised her eyebrows and said, "This king of the underworld seems to be going to the central dynasty." "To the central dynasty?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, "Is there anyone else with him?" "Yes." "These people seem to have unfathomable auras. I guess they have all mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. Wuxia nodded. Interesting. It seems that this taboo ocean will be our next hunting ground. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. Mu Qing was slightly stunned and turned to glance at Qin Feiyang. When she saw the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, she could not help but sympathize with the sea beasts in this area. However, these sea beasts deserved it, as they had gone against them time and time again. Mu Qing said, "It will be quite difficult to turn this place into a hunting ground. After all, there is no way to open a space-time tunnel here. And it is also very close to the Central Dynasty." "I know. But there is always a way." Qin Feiyang smiled. A few days later, Qin Feiyang rushed without stopping and finally met up with the white-eyed wolf and Madman in the sky above a sea area. "How is it on your side?" Madman asked. "Very smooth." Qin Feiyang smiled. "You guys are very smooth, but the situation on our side is very troublesome." Madman glanced at the sea area in front of him with a look of annoyance. After so many days, they had not chased after the king of the underworld. Obviously, the king of the underworld did not delay midway. "I have roughly guessed it. But there is one thing I don't know. When did the king of the underworld leave the underworld King Island?" Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously. "The night before we left the underworld King Island," Madman said. "The night before? In that case, they are not too far away from us now." Qin Feiyang was taken aback for a moment. Then his face was full of confidence. With his speed, he would definitely be able to catch up with the king of the underworld in half a day at most. Then he turned to look at Mu Qing and asked, "Did the king of the underworld change his position?" "No." Mu Qing shook her head. "No change? Then they can just wait to become our prey." The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted. "Even if they change their position, aren't they still our prey?" Mu Qing smiled. "Haha." Hearing this, the group of people laughed. In the sky above a small island, a group of dozens of people cut through the sky one after another without the slightest pause, and swept across the sky above the island. The leader was a middle-aged man. He looked to be in his 30s, and he was more than 1.8 meters tall. He wore a golden robe, and his long hair was like gold leaf, dazzling. The group of people behind him included men and women, old and young. They all exuded an aura that was as deep and unfathomable as the ocean. "Lord, we can't keep running like this. Besides, if Qin Feiyang really chases after us, with his dual ultimate meaning, we won't be able to escape from his clutches." One of them couldn't help but speak, his face full of worry. The king of the underworld said, "Don't worry. It's been so many days, and they haven't chased after us. Maybe they have already given up." His voice was slightly gloomy. However, even he didn't have much confidence in saying this. Another person couldn't help but complain. "I think we shouldn't be enemies with them. This is purely asking for trouble." "What did you say? Do you want to betray the divine kingdom, betray the Lord Ruler?" The king of the underworld immediately stared at that person. "I don't dare. What I mean is that we should keep a low profile and protect ourselves." That person hurriedly explained. "Protect ourselves? You are too naive. The battle between Qin Feiyang's group and the Central Dynasty will erupt sooner or later. And our taboo ocean happens to be in the center of the 4 great continents and the Central Dynasty. When the time comes, our taboo ocean will definitely become their battlefield. Do you think we can hide when the time comes? So now we must stand with the Central Dynasty. It's best if we can enter the Central Dynasty. Only then can we truly protect ourselves." The king of the underworld said in a deep voice. An old man said in surprise, "You have been helping the Central Dynasty people. Could it be that you want to gain their favor, and let them agree to let us enter the Central Dynasty?" "That's right. No one can stay out of this battle. Only by entering the Central Dynasty can we ensure our own safety." As for Qin Feiyang's group, although they are doing well in the 4 great continents now, in front of the Central Dynasty, they are like ants. The king of the underworld smiled contemptuously. "That's true. The 5,000 members of the Death God army that came last time all grasped the will of the heavenly path. And the Death God army definitely has more than that." The group of generals nodded. The taboo ocean was the closest to the Central Dynasty. Therefore, living in the taboo ocean, they knew the situation of the central dynasty better than the beings of the four great continents. In their view, Qin Feiyang and the others were digging their own graves by going against the central dynasty. However, they were still worried. From time to time, they would look at the ocean behind them to see if Qin Feiyang and the others were chasing after them. In the blink of an eye, half a day passed. The king of the underworld seemed to have noticed something. He suddenly turned his head to look at the void behind him, and his pupils suddenly shrank. When the others saw this, their hearts couldn't help but thump. They all turned their heads to look, and their expressions changed drastically. Chapter 4398. In the void behind them, 5 figures could be vaguely seen. Their auras were not obvious, but they could see that they were faster than them. Now that they were in the taboo ocean and were faster than them, except for Qin Feiyang who controlled 2 wills of the heavenly Tao, there was no one else. My lord, what should we do? The group of generals panicked. Even the people of the central dynasty had suffered great losses in the hands of this group of people. Even Dong Qingyuan, who had a pinnacle sovereign divine weapon, was not a match for these people, let alone them. The underworld king's face was also gloomy. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang and the others would not chase after them, but he did not expect that not only did they catch up, but they also caught up so quickly. Underworld king, stop. Let's talk. Qin Feiyang's voice sounded. It was very gentle, without any killing intent. My lord, the group of generals looked at the underworld king and begged. Why don't we stop and talk to Qin Feiyang and the others? As long as we have a good attitude, they will definitely show mercy. Show mercy? Don't be naive. They chased after us from afar. Will they let us go so easily? Besides, if a good attitude is useful, the oceanic race and the beast race would not have been exterminated by them. The underworld king snorted. But the group of generals wanted to say something but hesitated. Suddenly, an old man said, My lord, why don't we pretend to be polite with them first, and after we escape this disaster, we will think of a way to enter the central dynasty? That's a good idea. This is the only way now. If we continue to run, we will definitely anger them. If we don't run and fight them head-on, we will not be their match. The other generals nodded. No matter what, they had to save their lives first. Okay. The underworld king pondered for a while and nodded decisively. This was indeed the most reliable method at present. The group of people stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the others. They were secretly vigilant. They really stopped. Seeing this scene, Madman's expression was quite astonished. If they don't stop, they will die. Do they dare not stop? The white-eyed wolf smiled contemptuously. When he thought about it, he was actually quite emotional. When they first entered the divine kingdom, they could only flee when faced with the various major races. But now, even if it was the sea beasts of the taboo ocean, when they saw them, they would have to flee at the mere sight of them. Whoosh. Very soon, Qin Feiyang led the 4 of them to the opposite side of the underworld king. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said with a smile, I've heard so much about you seniors. Now that I've met you, you're indeed impressive. However, when these words fell into the ears of the tranquil ocean king and the others, they seemed to be mocking them. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they were in a difficult situation. But this Qin Feiyang actually said that they were impressive? If this wasn't sarcasm, then what was? However, even though he was displeased, he didn't dare to show it. The king of the underworld said with a straight face, I have long heard of your names, little brothers. The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other with amusement in their eyes. Weren't these words spoken against his heart? Senior, you flatter us. Qin Feiyang waved his hand with a smile and asked curiously, Senior, you look travel-worn. Where are you going? We're not going anywhere. We just have nothing to do, so we're strolling around. The king of the underworld laughed. Then you seniors are really in a good mood. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Same to you. Little brothers, didn't you also come to our taboo ocean for a stroll? The king of the underworld ocean said. Haha, Qin Feiyang laughed. This king of the underworld ocean was really interesting. Especially his ability to pretend to be confused, He wasn't careless at all. Little brother, what are you laughing at? Are my words very funny? The king of the underworld ocean was suspicious. No. This junior is quite puzzled. This junior and the others have been in the divine kingdom for so many years, and it seems that we haven't incurred any grudges with you seniors. But why do you seniors target us again and again? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, a trace of suspicion on his face. Target? The king of the underworld ocean was slightly stunned and puzzled. Little brother, why do you say that? Last time, when we entered the taboo ocean to pursue Dong Tianqian, there were sea beasts that informed him of our whereabouts. This time, when we entered the taboo ocean to pursue Dong Deyuan and the others, there were actually sea beasts that informed him of our whereabouts. Senior, shouldn't you give us an explanation for this matter? Qin Feiyang said. The king of the underworld ocean's pupils shrank. He pretended to look at Qin Feiyang in surprise and asked, "Is that true?" "Yes. Dong Deyuan was right next to me." Qin Feiyang nodded, turned to look at Dong Deyuan, and said with a smile, "Tell me, who tipped you off that we entered the taboo ocean to pursue you?" "A sea beast." At that time, he also said that he came under orders. Dong Deyuan said truthfully. When the king of the underworld and the others heard this, they suddenly panicked. Qin Feiyang looked at the king of the underworld and the others and said with a smile, "Seniors, what do you mean by under orders? Can you explain it for me?" "Brother Qin, there must be some misunderstanding. I have never given such an order," the king of the underworld hurriedly explained, then turned to the group of generals behind him and asked, "Did you give this order?" No, absolutely not. Before this, we didn't know that Brother Qin and the others had entered the taboo ocean. The group of generals shook their heads. They had to admit that each of them was a movie king. They lied without blushing at all. The king of the underworld looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed. It seems that there really is some misunderstanding. Maybe some blind beast king of our taboo ocean tipped them off without permission. Brother Qin, don't worry, we will definitely investigate this matter and give you a satisfactory explanation. There's no need for that. This junior doesn't care about such little tricks. But now this junior really does have something that I need your help with. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. This sentence had a deep meaning. It meant that the king of the underworld and the others should stop playing these little tricks. It was just that he didn't know if the king of the underworld and the others understood. The king of the underworld smiled and said, "Brother Qin, please tell us. As long as we can do it, we will definitely do it." Qin Feiyang said, "Dong Deyuan and Dong Yi have 10 accomplices. I hope that seniors can help me think of a way to gather them, so that we can catch them all in one fell swoop." Hearing this, the king of the underworld and the others were shocked. How ruthless. From Qin Feiyang's words, it was not difficult to judge that not only Dong Deyuan, but even Dong Yi had fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. But even so, he still did not intend to let the others go. This kind of person was indeed not to be provoked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I believe that this should not be difficult for seniors." "This?" The king of the underworld frowned and hesitated. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "Brother Qin, this is indeed a little difficult for us. You also know that they are all from the Central Dynasty. How would we dare to offend them? If the people of the Central Dynasty find out that we helped you kill these people, won't we suffer their revenge?" The king of the underworld said with a panicked expression. "Don't worry about that. As long as you don't say anything and we don't say anything, the people of the Central Dynasty won't know." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "But it's really risky. Our taboo ocean is so close to the Central Dynasty. It's fine if they don't know, but once they know, our taboo ocean will definitely suffer a destructive blow." The king of the underworld said, "My lord, just agree to it first. If they are angered later, we will all die here." The group of generals was extremely anxious. Didn't they agree to feign civility and cooperate with the other party first? Why were they fighting now? What good would it do them? "I know what I'm doing. There's no need for you to say anything." The king of the underworld secretly glared at the group of generals, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled apologetically. "Brother Qin, I know that you may be a little angry after hearing what I said, but please understand our difficulties. I understand. Of course I understand. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Hearing this, the king of the underworld's eyes flashed with a trace of pride. It seemed that this strategy of acting pitiful and gaining sympathy was quite effective. The group of generals could not help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Their lord had a way. Not only did he win Qin Feiyang's sympathy, but he also avoided the risk of offending the central dynasty. It was killing two birds with one stone. The king of the underworld looked at Qin Feiyang with a face full of gratitude. Thank you, brother Qin. You are a very righteous person. But don't worry, although we can't do anything, we will not interfere with what you do in the taboo ocean. You can treat the taboo ocean as your backyard, and do whatever you want. Then shouldn't I thank Senior? Qin Feiyang chuckled. No need, no need. We are all on the same side. Don't treat me like an outsider. The king of the underworld waved his hand repeatedly. What he said was so righteous and dignified. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said speechlessly, You have been acting with them for so long. Are you tired? Not tired. It's quite interesting. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Acting with us? The king of the underworld and the others were stunned. What did he mean? The white-eyed wolf looked at the group of generals and said jokingly, It seems that you really take us for fools. No. In all honesty. The king of the underworld hurriedly shouted. In all honesty? Okay. If you all make a blood oath now, we will believe you. The white-eyed wolf's eyes were full of playfulness. Blood oath. The king of the underworld and the group of generals suddenly panicked. If they were to make a blood oath now, wouldn't the wrath of heaven befall them at any moment? What? We don't dare. So you have been deceiving us all this time. The white-eyed wolf's eyes suddenly surged with strong killing intent. No, no. We are not deceiving you. The king of the underworld shook his head. My lord, this is the trouble you caused by acting smart. If you were willing to cooperate with them just now, wouldn't there be no trouble? The group of generals also secretly roared. How infuriating. Why did you act smart for no reason? Chapter 4399. Facing the scolding of a group of generals, the king of the underworld could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. But now, it was definitely not the time to be calculative. Because if he were to be calculative with a group of generals now, when they were angered and changed sides, his situation would be even worse. Although he was the king of the underworld and had a higher status than these generals were not weak either. As the saying goes, a cornered dog will jump over the wall. In a matter of life and death, one could do anything. Why are you so insensible? Do you think you can win our sympathy by acting pitiful? Qin Feiyang shook his head. If he could listen to him obediently, he could live a little longer. But now he could only apologize. Don't, let's talk nicely. I will cooperate. The king of the underworld hurriedly waved his hand. I have already given you the opportunity before, but you didn't cherish it. Now, I only believe that only people like Dong Deyuan who are controlled by the soul-controlling technique will truly cooperate with us. Killing intent flashed in Lunatic's eyes. When the all-evil sword appeared, its sharp edge instantly swept in all directions. The waves rose tens of thousands of feet high, and the void collapsed crazily. Damn it! Run! The king of the underworld roared. The group of people immediately activated the instant time, and flew into the sky. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. 3,000 clones activated, and the dual will of heavenly Tao erupted. Their speed was far from what the king of the underworld and the others could match, and they instantly surrounded the group. Kill our way out! The king of the underworld roared. Boom! Ultimate profound meaning was activated, and there were actually 9 ultimate profound meanings. 9 ultimate profundities of supreme laws were already considered the strongest existences in this world. Because apart from the life and death edict, the king of the underworld had mastered all the ultimate profound meanings, including the light and darkness edict. Seeing this, a group of generals also activated their ultimate profound meanings. These people had actually all mastered 7 ultimate profundities of the ultimate laws. The will of heavenly Tao erupted. This battle formation was not just a little frightening. The king of the underworld had 9 ultimate profound meanings, and the 30 generals each had 7. In total, there were 219 ultimate profound meanings. It could be said that such strength was enough to make many despair. However, Qin Feiyang, the madman, the white-eyed wolf, was an exception. A bunch of ants. How dare you be so presumptuous? The madman waved his hand, and the all-evil sword erupted with world-destroying might as it furiously slashed out. With a loud explosion, the 219 ultimate intents shattered on the spot. But at the same time, the madman's sword of all evil also collapsed. What happened? Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Mu Qing all looked at Madman in surprise. Wasn't Madman's all-evil sword capable of destroying 10,000 ultimate profundities? How was it that the other party was able to shatter the all-evil sword with just 219 ultimate profundities? Madman sent a voice transmission. Back in the village, the power of all evil was almost used up, and it still hasn't recovered, so this is the only way. I see. In other words, the power of the all-evil sword is completely supported by the power of all evil. Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Madman nodded. Right now, he was the source of all evil, and the evil power that he usually absorbed was stored in his body. In short, the more power of all evil he stored, the stronger the power of the all-evil sword would erupt. Then in the future, you should use the all-evil sword less and save it for critical moments. Qin Feiyang secretly said. It doesn't matter. I can control the power of all evil as I wish. I can extract as much as I need, and it won't be wasted. Moreover, the lethality of the all-evil sword itself isn't weak. Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the 3,000 incarnations. The 3,000 incarnations laughed and immediately swarmed forward, beating up the king of the underworld and the others. For a moment, screams could be heard endlessly. Blood also dyed the sky red. Don't go too far. The king of the underworld roared, and with a shake of his body, he turned into a huge sea beast. This was a golden deep sea dragon. Its body was thousands of feet long, like a majestic mountain ridge. This was the original body of the king of the underworld. The group of generals also changed back to their original bodies, which were a group of mountain-like sea beasts. Is it useful to change back to your original body? The white-eyed wolf sneered. Rumble. Sure enough. The 3,000 incarnations activated the kingdom of life and death, directly smashing the bodies of a group of sea beasts, staining the surroundings with blood. Following closely, whether it was the king of the underworld's divine soul or the group of generals, they were all suppressed by the 3,000 incarnations. The group of generals begged for mercy in despair. Qin Feiyang, spare our lives. It was all the king of the underworld's fault before. We have been persuading him to cooperate with you, but he thought himself clever. If you want to kill him, don't kill us. Our strength is not bad, we can serve you. With our help, not to mention Dong De Yuan's companions, even ruling this taboo ocean can be easily done. Please, give us a chance to make up for our mistakes. Did they dare to not beg for mercy? Right now, they were equivalent to fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by Qin Feiyang and the others. Hee. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf, and said, clean up the sea beasts nearby. Don't let the news of the king of the underworld and the group of generals falling into our hands spread. This will affect our plan. Understood. The madman and the white-eyed wolf nodded. A fierce light flashed in their eyes. After Qin Feiyang brought the king of the underworld and the group of generals' divine souls into the Black Tortoise realm, the two immediately rushed to the sea below. There was also Dong De Yuan. Dong De Yuan also grasped the will of the heavenly Tao, so his strength was naturally not to be underestimated. As for Mu Qing, he was recuperating at the side. He was also very tired after continuously opening the all-seeing eye. The reason why they had to clean up the nearby sea beasts was to silence them. There must be many sea beasts in the nearby sea that had seen the king of the underworld and the group of generals fall into their hands with their own eyes. Once this matter spread out, it would naturally be very difficult for Qin Feiyang and the others to use the name of the king of the underworld to gather all the sea beasts that had grasped the ultimate profound meaning. If they couldn't gather them, then there was no way to successfully plunder their ultimate profound meaning. So, this matter must be kept a secret for now. With the madman and the other two's slaughter, this sea area instantly turned into a sea of blood. About a moment later, Qin Feiyang appeared with the king of the underworld and the others. Not only had this group of people been controlled by the soul-controlling technique, even their shattered bodies had been reconstructed with the help of the mermaid princess. Moreover, they had returned to their human forms without any injuries on their bodies. Whoosh! Soon, the madman and the other two returned. Their bodies were dripping with blood and their murderous aura was monstrous. Moreover, there were many remnant souls suppressed beside each of them. Have you cleaned them up? Qin Feiyang asked. Is there a need to ask? Moreover, whenever we encounter sea beasts that have grasped the ultimate profound meaning, we will keep their divine souls. The madman bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine souls suppressed beside the three, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. There were at least thousands of divine souls suppressed beside the three. Even if these sea beasts only grasped one ultimate profound meaning of the strongest law, there were still thousands of ultimate profound meanings added up. In just a short while, they had obtained thousands of ultimate profound meanings of the strongest law. To them, this taboo ocean was a treasure trove. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and suppressed thousands of divine souls in the soul-sealing valley. Immediately after, he pondered for a while and looked at the king of the underworld. Immediately spread the news. Tell Dong Dayuan and Dong Yi's 10 companions that we have already rushed ahead of them, and are preparing to ambush them near the entrance of the Central Dynasty. Tell them to go to the King Island immediately. Tell them that you have a way to help them escape our pursuit. Yes. The king of the underworld replied respectfully. They only needed to find some sea beasts and issue this order. At that time, there would naturally be a large number of sea beasts looking for those 10 people. Also, tell all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean that have grasped the ultimate profound meaning of the strongest law to gather at the King Island. Qin Feiyang said again. As long as these sea beasts arrived, all the ultimate profound meanings would be in their pockets. He was really looking forward to it. How many ultimate profound meanings of the strongest law would they obtain in the end? Yes. The king of the underworld was now as obedient as a little lamb. He immediately took the order and led 30 generals to search for the sea beasts and issue these 2 orders. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Mu Qing and said with a smile, "You go to the Black Tortoise world first. I will call you out if I need you." "It's best if you don't need me." Mu Qing pursed her lips. She just wanted to go into seclusion and peace. Why was it so difficult? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and sent Mu Qing to the Black Tortoise world. Immediately after, he took out 4 illusion form pills and looked at the madman, white-eyed wolf, and Dong Dayuan. He smiled and said, "We also have to change our appearances. Otherwise, if we walk together with the king of the underworld and are seen by the sea beasts, it will affect our plan." Hee. The madman and Dong Dayuan bared their teeth, took the illusion form pills, and turned into a few middle-aged men. Not long after, the king of the underworld returned with a group of generals. The order had been issued, and now they were waiting for the fish to walk into the trap. Let's go. Let's go to the King Island and wait for them. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Immediately, the group of people flew towards the serene King Island in a grandiose manner. 2 days later, in the sky above a sea beast suddenly rushed out of the water and blocked in front of a black-robed old woman. The black-robed old woman was shocked and quickly stopped. "Don't be nervous. The king of the underworld asked me to tell you that Qin Feiyang and the others have already rushed in front of you and are preparing to wait for you near the entrance of the Central Dynasty. Therefore, he wants you to go to the King Island immediately." The sea beast said. "What? They're so fast." The black-robed old woman's expression changed. "Qin Feiyang has grasped 2 wills of the heavenly Tao. He will definitely be faster than you," the sea beast said. The black-robed old woman's heart sank and asked, "Does the king of the underworld really have a way to help us escape?" "I don't know. The king of the underworld only asked us to pass this news to you. It's up to you to believe it or not." After the sea beast finished speaking, it plunged into the sea and disappeared. Damn that Qin Feiyang. You'd better not let me return to the Central Dynasty. Otherwise, I will definitely lead an army and turn you into ashes. The black-robed old woman roared and finally decided to go to the King Island. Because now, she had no other choice but to believe in the king of the underworld. Chapter 4400. The other 9 also received the message from the sea beasts, and chose to head to the serene King Island like the black-robed old woman. There was indeed no other way. Hearing that Qin Feiyang and the others were going to wait for them near the entrance, they did not have the courage to continue. Not to mention the strength of the white-eyed wolf and the frenzied one, just Qin Feiyang's dual wills of the great path, 3,000 incarnations, and the laws of life and death were like a mountain that pressed down on them. At the same time, a large number of sea beasts were also rushing towards the serene King Island. When Qin Feiyang and the others returned to the serene King Island, there were already many sea beasts there. My lord, why did you call us here? Who are the 4 of them? Everyone surrounded the king of the underworld and asked. There were also sea beasts that looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang, the frenzied one, the white-eyed wolf, and Dong De Yuan. The sea beasts that entered the island had to transform into their human forms, so that they would not take up space. Of course there's something. The king of the underworld spoke, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, the 4 of them are newly promoted warlords. From now on, their orders are equivalent to my orders. Newly promoted warlords. So, they have already grasped the will of the great path. Everyone was surprised. Yes. The king of the underworld nodded. Greetings, my lords. Hearing this, everyone immediately bowed to Qin Feiyang and the others. Rise. Please take care of us in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. No, it should be my lord. Please take care of us. The sea beasts' faces were full of flattery. Lord King of the Underworld, did you call us here because of the 4 newly promoted warlords? Some sea beasts asked. It's part of the reason. After all, our taboo ocean hasn't had a new warlord for a long time. It's worth celebrating. As for the other reasons, I will announce them when everyone arrives. Now go and find a place to rest. In addition, the 10 people from the Central Dynasty will also come. Don't make things difficult for them. The king of the underworld instructed. Yes. Everyone nodded. They left in groups of 2s and 3s. I really didn't expect that 4 battle generals would be born at once. It's a little unexpected. But this is also a good thing. Our taboo ocean is getting stronger and stronger. Now, even if the sovereign of the human race and the divine king of the divine race enter our taboo ocean, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. Wait. I heard that Qin Feiyang, Golden Wing Wolf King, and Madman Mo have entered our taboo ocean. Could it be that the king of the underworld has summoned us here because of these 3 people? It can't be that he wants us to join hands and get rid of these 3 people, right? It's said that this Qin Feiyang controls 3,000 incarnations, the laws of life and death, the eye of heaven, and 2 wills of the heavenly Daos. He's not someone to be trifled with. You're too useless. So what if he's strong? There are so many sea beasts in our taboo ocean that have grasped the ultimate profundity. Why would we be afraid of a single person? That's right. As long as we gather together, we can drown him with a mouthful of saliva each. For a time there were many discussions on the island. In the middle of the island, there was a huge mountain that was thousands of feet high. At the peak of the mountain stood an ancient hall. Qin Feiyang and the others were led into the main hall by the king of the underworld. After entering the hall, the tranquil Sea King stood respectfully behind Qin Feiyang and the others. Should I close the door? Madman asked. No need. In any case, we've already changed our appearances and auras. No one can recognize us. Besides, if we close the door and wait for the 10 from the Central Dynasty to arrive, they might be suspicious. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. That makes sense. But now I'm still worried about a problem. We've gathered so many sea beasts this time, and all of them have mastered ultimate enlightenment of ultimate laws. With our strength, will we be able to take them down smoothly? Madman frowned. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he pondered for a moment before turning to look at the tranquil Sea King and asking, "How many sea beasts in your taboo ocean have mastered ultimate profundities of ultimate laws?" "I didn't calculate it." The tranquil Sea King shook his head. "Roughly?" Madman asked. "Roughly. There should be 200,000 to 300,000. The tranquil Sea King said with uncertainty. "What? 200,000 to 300,000? Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. 200,000 to 300,000. Even if each sea beast only mastered one ultimate profundity of ultimate laws, wouldn't there be 200,000 to 300,000 ultimate profundities in total? There was no need to elaborate. Even 200,000 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws could be divided into more than 30,000 parts. One must know. And this was a conservative calculation. Some sea beasts even mastered 3, 4, or even 5 ultimate profundities. It was hard to imagine how many ultimate profundities they would obtain in the end. The sea beasts of the taboo ocean were indeed stronger than the beasts and the oceanids. Madman said in a deep voice. If we calculate it this way, when these sea beasts attack us together, it might really be difficult for us to suppress them. It shouldn't be difficult. Although these sea beasts are huge in number, they haven't mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. Little Qinzi has 3,000 incarnations, the law of life and death, dual wills of the heavenly Tao, and the eye of heaven. You also have the sword of all evil. This brother also has a battle soul, and Dong Dayuan, the underworld sea king, and 30 generals. Moreover, we also have the battle souls of Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor. With their help, it shouldn't be difficult to suppress these sea beasts. The white-eyed wolf said. If we have the help of Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor, then it shouldn't be a problem. Madman nodded and pondered for a while before saying, but just in case, I still need to go to the Black Tortoise world and absorb the evil energy. Go to the Black Tortoise world to absorb the evil energy? The white-eyed wolf paused and frowned. The Black Tortoise world is peaceful. There shouldn't be much evil energy, right? No. Although the Black Tortoise world is peaceful now and the beings of the Black Tortoise world are friendly, no matter who it is, they will more or less have evil thoughts, resentment, evil thoughts, killing thoughts, etc. As long as there are these negative emotions, a large amount of evil energy will be born. Of course, the evil energy of the Black Tortoise world definitely can't be compared to the Divine Kingdom. However, if I take the initiative to absorb it, it will cause a huge commotion. At that time, it will definitely alarm the sea beasts of the taboo ocean. Madman said. How big of a commotion? The white-eyed wolf was curious. Madman said proudly. It's even bigger than when old Qin comprehended the life and death law's ultimate meaning in the Western continent. The white-eyed wolf's eyes widened. Back then, when Qin Feiyang comprehended the life and death law's ultimate meaning in the Western continent, it even shocked the Eastern continent, Southern continent, and Northern continent. Now Madman was telling him that taking the initiative to absorb the evil energy would cause a bigger commotion than Qin Feiyang? Was it that exaggerated? You still don't believe me? Let's go. Follow me to the Black Tortoise world. I will let you broaden your horizons. After Madman said that, he looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his hand, the white-eyed wolf and Madman immediately appeared in the sky above the Devil's Land. Just you watch. Madman chuckled and stepped into the clouds. A blood-red aura rushed out from his body, illuminating the surroundings. This aura was the most primitive evil energy. With the appearance of this aura, the entire Devil's Land was enveloped in an evil aura, as if a peerless demon king was being born. I am the god of all evil. All the evil energy in the world, listen to my call. Madman's domineering voice sounded. Like a heavenly bell, it resounded throughout the Black Tortoise world. Boom! The next moment, the evil energy around him turned into a huge vortex that occupied the entire sky above the Devil's Land. From afar, it looked like a blood-red bottomless pit, shocking the world. The moment this vortex appeared, the white-eyed wolf standing below also gradually emitted wisps of blood energy. This blood energy also carried an evil aura. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He reached out to grab this blood energy, but found that he couldn't grab it. It floated straight towards Madman. Brother Wolf, this is your evil thoughts, killing intent, evil thoughts, resentment, and other negative emotions. Madman's laughter rang out. Damn. It can actually directly plunder these negative emotions. The white-eyed wolf was shocked. Of course. I am the god of all evil, the god who rules over evil energy. All evil energy must listen to my call. Madman laughed domineeringly. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Suddenly, he looked at the castle and the surrounding courtyard. He found that whether it was inside the castle or the surrounding courtyard, wisps of blood energy were floating out. These blood energy were also filled with an evil aura. What's going on? What is going on? Following that, everyone in the Devil's Land ran out of the castle and the courtyard, looking at Madman in the sky in surprise. Don't be nervous. I am just plundering your evil energy. Madman laughed. Plundering our evil energy? Isn't this too abnormal? Everyone was shocked. This was the first time they saw Madman actively absorbing evil energy. At the same time, Zhongzhou, West Region, North Region, South Region, and East Region. Whether it was a human or a beast, whether it was an old man or a young man, wisps of blood energy floated out from their bodies. Only those newborn babies didn't. Because newborn babies are like a piece of white paper, they won't produce evil energy. When this scene first appeared, everyone was extremely bewildered. Some even thought that something was extracting the blood energy from their bodies, and they were all panicking. However, as time passed, they found that there was no discomfort on their bodies. On the contrary, they felt warm and comfortable all over. For a moment, everyone was puzzled to the extreme. What was going on? Because the evil energy was extracted, everyone's body and mind entered a state of being pure like a newborn baby, so they felt very comfortable. Chapter 44:01. An endless amount of evil energy gathered together and surged towards the Devil's Land. Gradually, the entire sky of the Black Tortoise world turned into a sea of blood. It was like a raging wave, filled with an astonishing evil aura. Everyone, don't panic. This is the Madman extracting the evil energy from our bodies. It won't hurt anyone. As the guardian of the Black Tortoise world, Fire Lotus sensed the panic of the living beings and quickly comforted them. His voice wasn't loud, but it rang in the ears of every living being. So it's the Madman's masterpiece, extracting the evil energy from our bodies. He has such an ability. How did he do it? It's beyond our imagination. Everyone came to a realization, and what followed was shock. Extracting the evil energy from other people's bodies was simply a fantasy to them. They had never heard of it before. As the brother of the sovereign, he was indeed not an ordinary person. Outside Serene King Island, more and more sea beasts gathered. On the third day, the island was already filled with people. When these sea beasts entered the Serene King Island, they all transformed into their human forms, because this was the only way the Serene King Island could fit them. Whoosh! On the fourth day, 10 real humans arrived at the Serene King Island. These 10 people were the companions of Dong De Yuan and Dong Yi. What's going on? When the 10 of them arrived at the Serene King Island, they were all confused when they saw the sea of people. When the Serene King sensed the aura of the 10 people, he immediately led Qin Feiyang, Dong De Yuan, and the 30 battle swords out to welcome them. Serene King, why are there so many sea beasts gathered at the Serene King Island? The 10 of them looked at the Serene King suspiciously. They also saw Qin Feiyang and Dong De Yuan, but they didn't recognize them. Let's talk inside. The Serene King led the 10 of them into the main hall. Qin Feiyang and the others followed closely behind. They are all? An old woman sized up Qin Feiyang and the others. They are this king's war generals. The Serene King smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Why aren't you greeting the guests from the Central Dynasty? Greetings, my lords. Qin Feiyang and the others bowed. No need to be so courteous. We still have to thank you. Otherwise, you guys would have let the sea beasts below keep sending us messages. We might have already fallen into the hands of that little bastard Qin Feiyang. A middle-aged man with a hooked nose said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. With such a foul mouth, It seems like he really needs to be taught a lesson. It's my duty. The king of the tranquil sea waved his hand and smiled at the hook-nosed man. He then pointed to the seat beside him and said with a smile, "Sit down and talk." The 10 of them nodded. Qin Feiyang and the others stood respectfully to the side. Tranquil Ocean King, is Dong Yi here yet? The black-robed old woman sat down and immediately looked at the serene Sea King. Right now they were most concerned about Dong Yi, because Yu Hui and Min Hong were both in Dong Yi's hands. Not yet. The king of the underworld shook his head. Not yet. What is he doing? Didn't you ask your men to inform him? An old man asked. They still didn't know that Dong Yi had been captured. Yes. Maybe he's still on the way. The king of the tranquil sea said with a smile. The 10 of them looked at each other. Another person sighed and said, he better not fall into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain. The old woman said, but then again, if Dong Yi really falls into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others, it'll be easy for us. We can just self-detonate and get away. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, there's no need to self-detonate. Compared to self-detonate, isn't it more meaningful to kill Qin Feiyang and the others? This was also the problem that he was worried about. Once the 10 of them found out that Dong Yi had been captured, they would definitely self-detonate. Because they had left their divine souls in the Central Dynasty, they could directly escape by self-detonating. So now, he had to appease the 10 of them. Kill Qin Feiyang and the others? The 10 of them looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. How do we kill them? Tell us. The 10 of them immediately looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. If they could really kill Qin Feiyang and the others, they would have made a great contribution. Let the king of the underworld tell you. Qin Feiyang smiled and silently closed his mouth. The 10 of them looked at the king of the underworld again. It's very simple. Fight them head-on. The king of the underworld spoke, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Fight them head-on? When the 10 of them heard this, their excitement suddenly disappeared, and they could not help but frown. With the strength of these people, how could they possibly defeat Qin Feiyang and the others in a head-on confrontation? I know that Qin Feiyang and the others are very strong, especially Qin Feiyang. The law of life and death, the 3,000 incarnations, the eye of heaven, and the dual will of heaven. But this is the taboo ocean. I can command all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean. The king of the underworld said domineeringly. Command all the sea beasts? The 10 of them were stunned. The aquiline-nosed man's eyes suddenly lit up, and he asked, did you summon these sea beasts to deal with Qin Feiyang and the others? That's right. The king of the underworld nodded. Can they do it? The 10 of them expressed their doubts. Don't underestimate them. This time, I have summoned all the sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness of supreme laws. According to my calculations, there are at least 200,000 to 300,000 sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness of supreme laws in the taboo ocean. The king of the underworld said. 200,000 to 300,000. Even the people from the Central Dynasty were shocked when they heard this number. They did not expect the taboo ocean to be so strong. Among these 200,000 to 300,000 sea beasts, some have mastered 2 ultimate profoundness of supreme laws, and some have even mastered 4 or 5 ultimate profoundness of supreme laws. Can you imagine how many ultimate profoundness of supreme laws there are if you add them all together? Moreover, I still have over 30 generals that have grasped the will of the heavenly Tao under my command. Adding on the 10 of you, even if Qin Feiyang uses all his trump cards, it would still be difficult for him to fight against us. The king of the underworld smiled confidently. That's reasonable. The 10 of them nodded. Taking a step back, even if we can't defeat them, we can still restrain them. When the time comes, you can self-detonate and escape, then immediately assemble a large force and rush to the taboo ocean. Won't they still die then? The king of the underworld chuckled, looking as if he was devising a strategy. Brilliant. We admire you. The 10 of them cupped their hands and smiled. You flatter us. But for now, I will have to trouble you to rest on the island for a few days. When all the sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness arrive, we can get ready to move, the king of the underworld said. It's fine. What kind of trouble was this? What they had experienced in the past few days was called suffering. The people of the second direct family of the Central Dynasty were forced to flee by 3 juniors. They couldn't help but feel aggrieved and angry just thinking about it. The king of the underworld turned to Qin Feiyang and said, "Take the 10 of them to rest. Make sure they are well settled." "Yes." Qin Feiyang replied respectfully, then looked at the 10 of them and said with a smile, "Everyone please." The 10 of them got up and walked outside. At the foot of the mountain where the main hall was, there was a residence with a good environment. There were many exquisite pavilions beside the mountains and rivers. This was where the king of the underworld used to entertain guests. Although the taboo ocean didn't have much contact with the 4 great continents and the Central Dynasty, they all lived on the same continent after all. So sometimes, the leaders of the 4 great continents would come to the taboo ocean for a stroll. As for the Central Dynasty, if someone went to the 4 great continents and passed by the taboo ocean, and happened to meet the king of the underworld, they would also come to visit. In short, a place to entertain guests was definitely indispensable for a force. Qin Feiyang sat in front of a courtyard and said with a smile, "Everyone, you can rest here for the time being. I will tell them that no one will disturb you." "That's for the best. We hate being disturbed the most." The old woman nodded. She thought that the sea beasts of the taboo ocean were quite sensible. Qin Feiyang smiled flatteringly. He didn't leave and seemed to have something to say. "What's wrong?" The 10 of them looked at him in confusion. I have a few questions, but I don't know if I should ask." Qin Feiyang hesitated. "What questions?" The 10 of them were puzzled. "Looking at the way you are dressed, you seem to be members of the Death God Army. But I heard that the Death God Army had 5,000 people some time ago. Why are there only a few of you left now?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "You know about the Death God Army?" The 10 of them were surprised. Qin Feiyang smiled flatteringly. "With such a big commotion, it's hard not to know." "That's true." The old woman nodded, then shook her head and said, "However, you have to know your own identity. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, understand?" Yes. I was talking too much. I hope everyone can forgive me." Qin Feiyang nodded quickly. He had a terrified look on his face. "It's good that you understand. Go, don't disturb us if there's nothing important." The old woman waved her hand. "Yes." Qin Feiyang responded and turned to leave. Originally, he wanted to take the opportunity to inquire about the situation of the Central Dynasty, but he didn't expect this group of people to be so arrogant. Arrogant, huh? Fine. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. Chapter 4402. In the blink of an eye. More than 10 days passed. Qin Feiyang stood on the mountain peak and scanned the surrounding sea area. Since the day before yesterday, the number of sea beasts that came to Serene King Island had decreased. Yesterday, only a few dozen sea beasts came. Obviously, almost all the sea beasts that grasped the ultimate profound had arrived. After waiting for an entire morning, only 2 sea beasts came. This meant that those that should come had all arrived. It was time to reel in the net. "Senior brother, are you ready?" Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. "I've long been ready." Madman's voice rang in his mind. One day outside was equivalent to 5,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. It had been almost 20 days since they arrived at Serene King Island. It had been almost 100,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. No matter how much evil force there was, it had been absorbed clean. "All right, why didn't you say anything?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. Isn't this fusing the ultimate profound?" Madman bared his teeth. "All right. Hurry up and get ready. Call the white-eyed wolf and come out together. Also, get the demon ancestor Mu Tianyang, Long Chen, and Long Qin to get ready too." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. "How many came?" Madman was bewildered. Qin Feiyang said, "According to my observation, there are about 220,000 sea beasts gathered on Serene King Island." 220,000? Madman was stunned. It was indeed similar to what the Serene King said. He then asked excitedly, "How's the quality?" "Quality?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "It's the number of ultimate profound," Madman explained. These days, I have been paying attention to these sea beasts. I guess that more than half of them have grasped one ultimate profound. There should be about 20,000 sea beasts grasping 2 ultimate profound. There should be more than 3,000 sea beasts grasping 3 ultimate profound. There should be about 500 to 600 sea beasts grasping 4 ultimate profound. As for the sea beasts that have mastered 5 ultimate profound meanings, I think there are only 70 or 80 of them. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. This is also quite scary. Madman was shocked to the extreme. It's really scary. As long as we obtain the ultimate secrets of these sea beasts, we might be able to create a team that can contend against the Death God army. Qin Feiyang thought. Okay, wait for me. I'll inform Longchen and the others right away. After the madman finished speaking, he immediately came out of seclusion. This matter concerned their future. They could only succeed and not fail. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Then he also rose into the air and flew away from the island. What is this Lord General going to do? On the island below, many sea beasts noticed Qin Feiyang, and their faces were filled with confusion. These days, news of Qin Feiyang's newly promoted battle general had spread long ago. Therefore, when they looked at Qin Feiyang, their eyes were filled with reverence. A moment later, Qin Feiyang left Ghost King Island and entered a desolate island. Seeing that there was no one around, Qin Feiyang's mind moved and 3,000 incarnations appeared. He asked, "You know what to do, right?" "Yes." The 3,000 incarnations chuckled and activated their concealment technique before disappearing without a trace. Qin Feiyang also took out a facial restoration pill and restored his true appearance. Now there was no need to hide anymore. Swish. Subsequently, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the madman, White-Eyed Wolf, and Long Qin appeared beside him. No need to hide anymore? Seeing that Qin Feiyang had restored his true appearance, the madman asked in surprise. No need. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Haha. Then let's do it. The madman and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and laughed. A group of bandits. Long Qin secretly despised them. To encounter these guys, the sea beasts of the taboo ocean were really unlucky. Let's go. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and once again rushed towards the Serene King Island without concealing his aura. The White-Eyed Wolf's group of 3 followed closely behind. Rumble, as they approached the Serene King Island. The terrifying aura of the 4 surged over and enveloped the entire island. This aura. All the sea beasts on the island immediately raised their heads and looked over. The Serene King Dong Dayuan and a group of generals also walked out from the main hall. The old woman and the others were no exception. With a whoosh, they rushed out from the pavilion and landed beside the Serene King. Looking at the void outside the island, their expressions were extremely solemn. Swish. Billowing waves crazily rushed towards the Serene King Island, covering the sky and the sun. 4 figures stepped on the waves and came over. Wherever they went, the void collapsed and the sky trembled. At first glance, it was like the birth of a wild beast. Quickly look. There seems to be 4 figures. Someone shouted in surprise. Everyone looked over, and there were indeed 4 figures. To be able to cause a tsunami and collapse the void, the strength of these 4 must not be weak. It's them. Qin Feiyang. Very soon, these 4 figures clearly entered their line of sight. Their expressions changed drastically and they panicked. Especially the old woman and the others. Their faces were pale and their bodies could not help but tremble. These few people had finally found their way to the Serene King Island. Boom. Qin Feiyang's group of 4 stepped into the Serene King Island. The powerful aura caused even this boundless island to shake violently. Mountains and rivers collapsed crazily. It was like a scene of doomsday. All of you actually came to the Serene King Island to hide. You really know how to hide. The White-Eyed Wolf scanned the surroundings and finally locked his gaze on the old woman and the others beside the Serene King. His eyes were full of ridicule. The 10 of them panicked. The hook-nosed man mustered up his courage and shouted, Everyone, don't be afraid. There are so many of us. A mouthful of saliva from each of us can drown them. Don't say that. This sentence was really effective. All the sea beasts gathered together, and a powerful aura rolled out, constantly colliding with the aura of Qin Feiyang's group. 220,000 sea beasts. And all of them had mastered the ultimate esoteric law. This aura was also very scary. Serene King, isn't this what we have been waiting for? Hurry up and give the order. I believe that as long as we work together, we will definitely be able to kill them. As long as we can kill them, when I return to the Central Dynasty, I will definitely ask the Emperor for a reward for you. The old woman turned her head to look at the Serene King and said, she was actually thinking of a reward? She was a little naive. However, the Serene King was indifferent. What's going on? Serene King, what are you doing? Hurry up and give the order. The 10 of them urged. But the Serene King still did not move. The madman looked at the 10 of them and said playfully, your words are useless. You need us to speak. Speaking of this, the madman's eyes flashed with killing intent and he shouted, cripple them. Boom. The Serene King, Dong De Yuan, and a group of warlords suddenly launched a surprise attack. The old woman and the others did not expect this scene and were caught off guard. Their bodies were shattered on the spot. Moreover, the Serene King made a move and quickly suppressed the divine souls of the 10. What are you doing? The divine souls of the 10 roared. They never thought that these people would attack them from behind. The 220,000 sea beasts also looked at the Serene King and the others in surprise. Haha. How is it? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Also, don't you feel that something is missing now? What is missing? Everyone looked around. Nothing was missing, right? But suddenly, an old man's eyes trembled and shouted, it seems that there are 3 warlords missing. Yes, yes, yes. Of the 4 newly promoted warlords, only 1 is here now. Where are the other 3? Could it be that they have been killed? That can't be right. These days, there has been no battle on the Serene King Island. Everyone was bewildered. Open your eyes wide and watch carefully. The hope that you have placed on is actually making you more desperate. Serene King, bring their divine souls here. The white-eyed wolf said. At that moment, the Serene King, Dong De Yuan, and a group of warlords flew in front of Qin Feiyang one after another. What's going on? The 220,000 sea beasts were stunned. Why did the Serene King and a group of warlords obediently fly over when the golden-winged wolf king gave an order? The divine souls of the old woman and the others who were suppressed were also full of surprise. Still don't understand? Qin Feiyang looked at the old woman and the others and said with a smile, do you still remember what you said to me when you first came to the Serene King Island? You told me to recognize my identity and not ask what I shouldn't ask. When the 10 heard this, they pondered for a moment, and their eyes suddenly trembled. They looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Chapter 4403. Looking at their expressions, the smile on Qin Feiyang's face became even wider. Their bodies were shattered and their divine souls were sealed. Now, even if they wanted to self-destruct, they wouldn't have the chance to do so. Impossible. All of this must be an illusion. The hook-nosed man shook his head. Don't doubt it, be brave. The person you were talking about was me. Qin Feiyang said. No. The hook-nosed man roared. Because if the person who brought them to the attic was really Qin Feiyang, wouldn't it mean that everything was a trap set by Qin Feiyang? He couldn't believe it. You dare to say this to old Qin? I really don't know where you borrowed your courage from. The frenzied one and the white-eyed wolf also laughed. Qin Feiyang took out a facial restoration pill and handed it to Dong De Yuan with a smile. Let them see your true appearance. Dong De Yuan nodded and took the facial restoration pill. His appearance immediately began to change. The 10 of them stared at Dong De Yuan. The moment Dong De Yuan regained his true appearance, the 10 of them felt as if they were struck by lightning. They didn't recognize the others, but Dong De Yuan was their companion, their clansman. Even if he turned into ashes, they would still recognize him. There's one more thing. If I say it, it might make you collapse. Qin Feiyang smiled. What is it? The 10 of them were nervous. Dongyi, Qin Feiyang chuckled. Dongyi. The 10 of them were shocked and suddenly felt uneasy. You should be looking forward to meeting Dongyi. Because Yu Hui and Min Hong are in his hands. And your mission this time is to bring them back to the central dynasty. Before Qin Feiyang finished, the old woman shouted. What are you trying to say? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a smile. So anxious? Well, I'll tell you. In fact, what I want to say is that Dongyi has already fallen into our hands. What? Hearing these words, the 10 people's divine souls were about to collapse. The king of the underworld also knows about this, but why didn't he tell you? It's all for the sake of luring you all to Serene King Island. Because once you find out about this, you will definitely choose to self-destruct without hesitation. Furthermore, I deliberately said that there would be an opportunity to kill us in order to appease you all. Qin Feiyang smiled. King of the underworld, are you seeking death? How dare you betray the divine kingdom and collude with Qin Feiyang? The 10 of them immediately looked at the king of the underworld and the 30 generals and roared. However, the king of the underworld and the others remained indifferent. It seems that you still don't understand. The king of the underworld and a group of generals are also under our control. The so-called 4 great generals are actually me and my senior brother, the white-eyed wolf Dong Diyuan. Qin Feiyang smiled. Their bodies and minds trembled. So this is a trap. Then why did you call us here? The 220,000 sea beasts felt their scalps go numb and asked. Of course, this is also a trap. Qin Feiyang smiled. Also a trap? Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? The group of sea beasts was puzzled. Of course. I need your ultimate law and ultimate profound. Qin Feiyang smiled. The 220,000 sea beasts were shocked when they heard this. Not only did he want to fight the 10 of them from the central dynasty, but he also wanted to snatch their ultimate profound? Run. Someone roared and the 220,000 sea beasts immediately turned into frightened birds and fled in all directions. Even the king of the underworld and a group of generals were already under Qin Feiyang's control. What else could they do? I've carefully set up this trap. Now that there's only one step left, how can I let you all escape? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Boom. Along with the terrifying auras burst out from all directions of Serene King Island. Immediately after, one figure after another walked out of the void. They were the 3,000 clones that had disappeared after activating the concealment technique. 3,000 clones. Seeing the appearance of the 3,000 clones, whether it was the old woman or the 220,000 sea beasts, they were all terrified. Now that the entire Serene King Island had become an inescapable net, it was impossible to escape. They had to defeat Qin Feiyang and the 3,000 clones. Everyone, don't just sit there and wait for death. Let's fight our way out. The hook-nosed man who was suppressed looked at the 220,000 sea beasts and roared. Yes. Kill our way out. We've painstakingly comprehended the ultimate law. We can't let them get away so easily. The 220,000 sea beasts roared. The power of law surged. In the void above, hundreds of thousands of ultimate law and ultimate profound appeared in an instant. Although there was no heavenly will, the divine aura that was emitted was extremely terrifying. A bunch of ants, how dare you act so rashly? The 3,000 clones laughed. Don't kill them. Qin Feiyang shouted. Understood. The 3,000 clones nodded. The time array activated. Under the feet of each clone, a time array appeared and flickered with divine light. Following that, the purple gold dragon soul appeared. The eye of heaven opened and began to copy the ultimate profound of these sea beasts. This was the benefit of mastering the time law. In the past, without the time law, Qin Feiyang could only go to the Black Tortoise world and borrow the time array when he opened the eye of heaven to copy the ultimate profound. But now, he could set up a time array anytime and anywhere, so there was no need to enter the Black Tortoise world. With the help of the time array, the eye of heaven instantly copied the 220,000 sea beasts' ultimate profound. The 220,000 sea beasts were dumbfounded. This is the eye of heaven? This is too abnormal. It actually copied all of their ultimate profound. Madman grinned. It seems that we don't need to do anything. No. We can't be careless. We have to prevent them from self-destructing. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Kill. Accompanied by a heaven-shaking roar, the ultimate profound of both sides collided. The void land and sea here turned into ashes on the spot. This won't do. They're too strong. Even if I die, I won't let you deprive me of my ultimate profound. Accompanied by a roar of despair, a destructive aura erupted. Obviously, some sea beasts chose to self-destruct. As long as one sea beast chose to self-destruct, the other sea beasts would follow suit. In an instant, countless destructive auras erupted. Haha. You guys never expected that these sea beasts would be so unafraid of death. You guys are very strong and can stop a portion of the sea beasts from self-destructing, but can you stop all the sea beasts from self-destructing? Your wishful thinking is destined to go down the drain. The old woman's 10 divine souls watched this scene, and couldn't help but laugh out loud in schadenfreude. What a bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. Qin Feiyang looked at the 10 of them in disdain. With a thought, 2 figures appeared in front of him. It was the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang. Chapter 4404. Can you control the Lord and the others? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. None of them have mastered the will of the heavenly path. It's a small problem. The demon ancestor smiled confidently. The eye of despair opened at the same time. The 2 strongest battle souls instantly erupted with terrifying divine power. Some of the sea beasts fell into the abyss of despair, unable to extricate themselves. Mu Tianyang's eye of evil also opened. The eye of evil could control the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living things. It could also magnify the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living things. For example, greed, ambition, and desire. From there, it would achieve the goal of controlling the other party. Let's kill each other. Mu Tianyang roared. As his voice fell, the eyes of the other group of sea beasts turned blood red, and they began to kill each other. At this moment, the desire, ambition, and greed in their hearts completely erupted. It was endless. Screams, roars, and angry roars. It was incessant. Now their bodies and minds had been completely engulfed by desire, ambition, and greed. They had turned into crazy killing machines. This is the eye of evil and the eye of despair. The old woman and the others were dumbfounded. They could even easily control creatures that had mastered the ultimate ultimacy. It was too terrifying. It was simply a nightmarish existence. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Dong Deyuan. He pointed at the divine souls of the old woman and the others and ordered, "You watch over them." "Yes." Dong Deyuan replied respectfully. "Senior brother, White-Eyed Wolf, king of the underworld, let's do it quickly." Qin Feiyang shouted coldly again, and leaped into the battlefield. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, king of the underworld, the 30 generals, and the 3,000 avatars around them also pounced on the battlefield like hungry wolves. Their first targets were the sea beasts that were controlled by the eye of despair. Because these sea beasts had fallen into the abyss of despair, they did not even know how to resist. Therefore, killing them was as easy as blowing off dust. Accompanied by endless wails, the sea beasts fell one after another. Their physical bodies were all shattered. Only their divine souls were left. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Longqin appeared. He said, "Qiner, you are responsible for suppressing their divine souls." "Okay." Longqin nodded. The power of laws surged out and formed a huge barrier. The souls of the sea beasts were suppressed within the barrier. So many. How many ultimate mysteries did he obtain? Looking at the sea beasts in front of him, Longqin's face was full of shock. This was a massacre. Blood poured down like a waterfall, turning the sea into a sea of blood. The smell of blood was pungent. 100 breaths passed. The massacre had finally come to an end. The fiend ancestor and Mu Tianyang's eye of despair and evil eye also disappeared. Their bodies swayed slightly, as if they were exhausted. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously as he stepped forward to support them. "It's too extreme. We can't take it anymore." Mu Tianyang shook his head. "That's the limit?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. Wouldn't it be even more difficult to deal with an expert who has grasped the will of the heavenly Tao? Definitely. The stronger they are, the harder it is for us to control them. Moreover, the will of the heavenly Tao is the strongest will in the world. Once it merges with a living being, the other parties will also be strengthened. Our eye of despair and evil eye are targeted at the other party's will. If the other party's will is strong enough, it will naturally be more difficult to control them. Mu Tianyang said. I don't think so. The will of the heavenly Tao is very strong, but I still believe that man can conquer the heavens. As long as we don't give up and surrender, our will be more terrifying than the will of the heavenly Tao. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists, his words sonorous and powerful. Haha. Hearing this, the two looked at each other and laughed. More terrifying than the will of the heavenly Tao. What a domineering statement. At the same time, the white-eyed wolf and the others assisted Long Qin and suppressed the souls of all the sea beasts. How is it? Are there any casualties? Qin Feiyang asked. There are some casualties among the sea beasts controlled by the evil eye, but not many. I estimate that there are only a few hundred sea beasts that have been destroyed. Long Qin said. A few hundred sea beasts, it's quite a pity. Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. However, this was unavoidable, because the evil eye was different from the eye of despair. The eye of despair made the other party fall into the abyss of despair. As long as the other party was controlled by the eye of despair, it was equivalent to a puppet standing there for you to kill. Naturally, there would not be any casualties. But the evil eye controlled the other party's 7 emotions and 6 desires, magnifying their ambitions, desires, and greed. Whether it was humans or other living beings, as long as they were engulfed by their ambitions, desires, and greed, they would enter a state of madness and attack mercilessly. Naturally, casualties were unavoidable. Gradually, this place calmed down. The seawater rolled in and swallowed the original Ghost King Island. Does this mean we're done? The white-eyed wolf asked. Of course. Next, it's Long Chen's matter. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and turned to look at Long Qin. Take the souls of these sea beasts to the Black Tortoise world and hand them to your brother. At the same time, let Qiao Shui, Li Zhongxing, and the old poison come out of seclusion to help. It's quite convenient for you to order me around now. Long Qin looked at him unhappily. Haha. Don't be so polite since we're family, right? Qin Feiyang laughed. Who's family with you? Long Qin glared at him angrily. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He looked at Dong Deyuan, king of the underworld, and the others and said, Enter the Black Tortoise world and let them strip all their ultimate mysteries. Dong Deyuan, king of the underworld, and the others heard this sentence, but they did not have any reaction. It was as if it had nothing to do with them. What about these 10 people? Madman glanced at the souls of the old woman and the others. The eyes of the 10 trembled as they hurriedly begged. Don't strip us of our ultimate mysteries. We are from the Central Dynasty. You still want to threaten us? Madman sneered. No. What we want to say is that we are very valuable. As long as you let us go, we can be your informants. The 10 of them hurriedly explained. Informants? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, their faces full of ridicule. With the inner demons and big cousin as informants, did they still need other informants? Not at all. It was purely unnecessary. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile. Capturing them so hard, isn't it because you want their ultimate mysteries? Strip them all, and Dong Yi, it's useless to keep them. No. I beg you. Let us go. We swear that we will be loyal to you and be your cattle and horses. The 10 of them begged again and again. Stripping them of their ultimate mysteries was more painful than killing them. They might as well die. But now, they even lost the right to die. Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. With a wave of his hand, except for Madman and the white-eyed wolf, everyone was sent to the Black Tortoise world. I really didn't expect it to be so smooth. However, I really have to thank Mu Tianyang and Ancestor Demon. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang and Madman nodded. It was easy to kill these sea beasts, but without the evil eye and eyes of despair, capturing these sea beasts alive was harder than ascending the heavens. Next, Are we going to return to the 4 great continents? The white-eyed wolf asked. What else do you want to do? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. The white-eyed wolf looked at the end of the sea and chuckled. I want to take a look at the entrance of the Central Dynasty and see what it is like. What's there to see? If I can enter the Central Dynasty, I will be very happy. Madman bared his teeth, because as long as they entered the Central Dynasty, they could avoid fighting in the 4 great continents. This way, they wouldn't implicate the human race, god race, and purple gold divine dragon race. Most importantly, as long as they entered the Central Dynasty, they could find an opportunity to destroy the 10 teams of the Death God army one by one. In fact, the current situation was the same as when the Divine Kingdom invaded the Sky Cloud boundary. If they stayed in the 4 great continents, they would be in a passive state, because they could only wait for the Central Dynasty to take the initiative to come to the 4 great continents. But if they could enter the Central Dynasty, they could take the initiative to attack. There is only one way to enter the Central Dynasty, and that is to find that mysterious youth, because only the origin energy in his hands can destroy the origin energy between the Central Dynasty and the 4 great continents. But we don't even know where this guy is right now. Qin Feiyang frowned. Then should we ask the monarch, Divine King, and Jizun to help us find him? Madman suggested. That's the only way. Qin Feiyang nodded and glanced at the surrounding sea. He smiled and said, let's go back first. There are still 8 people from the second direct family waiting for us to deal with. On the way back, the 3 didn't even use the split time. It was very leisurely. Because of this, it took them almost half a month to walk out of the taboo ocean. Seeing the long-awaited sunlight, the 3 couldn't help but smile. From the time they entered the taboo ocean until now, it had been about 2 months. 2 months, 60 days. 300,000 years had passed in the Black Tortoise world. 300,000 years. The sacred ground must have many disciples stepping into the Dominator realm. The white-eyed wolf couldn't wait and said, let's go to the Black Tortoise world and see how many ultimate mysteries we have obtained this time. In the half a month on the way back, 100,000 years had passed in the Black Tortoise world. He believed that Longchen must have already robbed all the sea beasts of their ultimate mysteries. When they appeared in the Devil's Land, as expected, Longchen had already gone into seclusion to fuse with his ultimate mysteries. Longqin, Xiaoshui, Li Zhongxing, and the Old Poison were also in seclusion. Qin Feiyang brewed a pot of tea and sat in the tea garden. With a thought, Xiaoshui appeared in front of him. Sit down and talk. Qin Feiyang smiled and poured a cup of tea for Xiaoshui. Xiaoshui picked up the teacup and tasted it. Her posture was elegant and noble. Are you going to keep us in suspense again? The white-eyed wolf and Madman were both holding a jug of wine. Seeing that Xiaoshui didn't speak for a long time, they immediately asked with displeasure. Xiaoshui looked at the 2 in surprise and said, why do you have to say it? Can't you let me keep you in suspense first? The 2 rolled their eyes. Chapter 4405. Xiaoshui put down her teacup and said with a smile, we've collected more than 254,000 ultimate laws this time. More than 254,000. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf stood up. Qin Feiyang's arm that was holding the teacup couldn't help but tremble slightly. More than 254,000 das. That would be more than 42,000 das. In other words, the ultimate laws they had collected this time could create more than 42,000 overlords with the will of heaven. Wasn't that equivalent to a few teams of the Death God army? Little Qin Zi, I think we'll have the strength to fight against the Death God army of the Central Dynasty, if we can cultivate these overlords with the will of heaven. The white-eyed wolf said excitedly. Although there were more than 42,000 now, there were still 6,000 dark guards, Xia Yuan and the others, and the 3 races. Most importantly, Qin Feiyang, the king, Heavenly Lord Ji, the demon ancestor and boss Ji all had 3,000 incarnations. They were all overlords who could fight against 3,000 people, especially Qin Feiyang and the demon ancestor. One had the eye of heaven, and the other had the eye of despair. And the mad scientist. The destructive power of the all-evil sword could also destroy an army of death gods. That's right, but we still need time. Besides, we don't know the exact situation of the death god army yet. We need to wait for the inner demons and cousin to find out more. Qin Feiyang said. I know. But I want to know that even if there's still a gap between us and the central dynasty, it's not that big. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Qin Feiyang nodded. He didn't know when the inner demons and cousin would come back. He didn't dare to act rashly before figuring out the true strength of the death god army. After all, it was too important. If he wasn't careful, the god race, the human race and the purple gold divine dragon race would be doomed. One had to know. The god race, the human race and the purple gold divine dragon race had many people. If his mistake really caused the three major races to fall into a desperate situation, he wouldn't be able to get over it. Wait. The white-eyed wolf calmed down and looked at Xiao Shui. There are a total of 220,000 sea beasts, and that's not including the ocean nether king and the others. How come we only obtained a little over 250,000 ultimate mysteries? That's because the majority of sea beasts only possess a single ultimate profound. For example, the sea beasts that have grasped 5 ultimate profound meanings. Although they have grasped many ultimate profound meanings, there are very few of them. According to my calculations, there are only 65 sea beasts that have grasped 5 ultimate profound meanings. It does look impressive, but if you count it carefully, you'll realize that the 65 sea beasts only have 300 ultimate mysteries of ultimate laws. Xiao Shui shook her head. You're right. The white-eyed wolf nodded. After all, there were too few sea beasts that had mastered 2, 3, 4, or even 5 ultimate profound meanings. Xiao Shui smiled and said, but at the same time, we also obtained several 100,000 ultimate profundities of ordinary laws. There are so many ultimate profundities in ordinary laws? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Of course. Ordinary laws are easier to comprehend than ultimate laws. Basically, every sea beast has grasped 1 or 2 ultimate laws. Can you imagine how many ultimate profundities of 220,000 sea beasts are added together? Xiao Shui said. The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment. Then he looked at Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf and chuckled. This is a bonus. In the past, he only valued the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws and neglected the value of ordinary ultimate laws. Even if he took them away, he would only take away the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. But in fact, ordinary ultimate profundities of ultimate laws were also very valuable. Although they couldn't use them, they could send them to the divine treasury, and let the beings of the Black Tortoise world fight for them with luck and strength. This way, other than the disciples of the sacred grounds, other beings could also gradually rise. Qin Feiyang looked at Xiao Shui and asked, do you still have the ultimate law of light and darkness that the Netherworld King gave you? Of course. Without your permission, I won't give it to anyone who comes to me. Xiao Shui nodded. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Then he asked curiously, so someone has already come to you for the ultimate law of light and darkness? They had a total of 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness. Among them, Qin Feiyang the Frenzy, the White-Eyed Wolf, Long Qin, Long Chun, the Inner Demons and Lu Jiajing each had 1 ultimate law. The last one was also taken by the Long Chun siblings. It should have been given to Long Zun. Now the Netherworld King had the 9th ultimate law. They had to admit that although the ultimate law of light and darkness couldn't be compared to the ultimate law of life and death, it was really rare. Over the years, they had obtained more than 300,000 ultimate mysteries from other supreme laws. However, they only had 9 ultimate mysteries from the law of light and darkness. Yes, like Mu Qing, Mu Tianyang, Li Zhongxing, and the old poison. When they saw the ultimate law of light and darkness, they almost drooled. Xiao Shui shook her head and smiled bitterly. They really didn't know how to be content at all. If it weren't for the hard work of Qin Feiyang, the Frenzy, the White-Eyed Wolf, Long Chun and Long Qin over the years, they would be grateful if they could comprehend 2 or 3 ultimate laws of light and darkness, let alone the will of heavens. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, it's understandable. After all, At this level, one more ultimate law of light and darkness would make a world of difference in strength. For example, a person who had 7 ultimate laws of light and darkness could completely crush a person who had 6 ultimate laws of light and darkness. Then, who do you plan to give this ultimate law of light and darkness to? Qiao Shui asked. Do you still need to ask? Of course, I'll give it to my wife. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Now the adults had basically obtained enough ultimate laws of light and darkness to master the will of heavens. For example, Mu Tianyang and the others had even given them 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness. 8 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. This was already all the ultimate laws apart from the life and death laws and the light and darkness laws. So now, he had to take care of the people he cared about the most. And the mermaid princess was undoubtedly the person Qin Feiyang cared about the most. In a sense, there was no other. Okay. I'll give it all to you now. You can make the arrangements yourself. Qiao Shui took out 2 interspatial rings. One contained ultimate laws of light and darkness, while the other contained ultimate laws of light and darkness. Qin Feiyang took the 2 interspatial rings and asked, "Where are the underworld king Dong De Yuan Dong Yi and the others now?" "They're all suppressed in Soul Sealing Valley. Long Chen has already removed his control over them. They're waiting for you to decide whether they live or die," Qiao Shui said. "What about Min Hong and Yu Hui?" Qin Feiyang asked again. Qiao Shui smiled and said, "They're still imprisoned in the ancient castle's cultivation room." "Okay, thank you for your hard work. Go into seclusion first." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. "Okay." Qiao Shui nodded. After drinking the tea in her cup, she got up and left. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while. With a wave of his hand, Fire Lotus appeared beside him. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, Fire Lotus smiled and said, "You're returning with a full harvest from this taboo ocean. Do you admire us?" "Unfortunately, we're all taken men." White-eyed Wolf bared his teeth. "Shameless." Fire Lotus looked at him with disdain. Qin Feiyang handed the 2 interspatial rings to Fire Lotus and said with a smile, "You can make the arrangements for the ultimate laws of light and darkness. However, these ultimate laws of light and darkness must be used on the disciples of the Saint Hall." "Understood." Fire Lotus nodded. Also in the past, the 6,000 Dark Guards only gave them 6 inheritances. But now we have extra inheritances, so we'll give them the remaining 2 inheritances. Qin Feiyang smiled. Apart from the law of light and darkness, 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness was already the limit. What about the others apart from the 6,000 Shadow Guards? Fire Lotus asked. Of course, they have to be given. Everyone in our Devil's Land will eventually have to master 8 ultimate profundities of the supreme laws. That includes you. Because the Devil's Land is the strongest holy land in our Black Tortoise world, Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Pai Lupi, Theta Wang, Pei Hongyu, Pei Dason. Don't forget that they have contributed a lot to our Black Tortoise world over the years. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I won't forget them. Because my feelings are the most obvious. If it weren't for their help, I might have been so busy that I wouldn't have had time to cultivate. Fire Lotus said. She didn't just admire the 4 of them, she was also grateful. They had shared a lot of her burden. No. Now it could be said that the 4 of them were in charge of everything in the Black Tortoise world. As for her, she only needed to give orders, which was tantamount to being a hands-off manager. Qin Feiyang said again. Also there is an ultimate law of light and darkness in here. Help me pass it to your sister-in-law. Pass it to her? Qin Dage. I can guarantee you that she won't accept it. Because you know her personality. She has no desires and would rather pass this law of light and darkness to people like the demon ancestor who need it more. Fire Lotus said. That's your business. Qin Feiyang smiled. It was because he understood the mermaid princess personality too well that he asked Fire Lotus to pass it to her. Okay. So you want me to be the lobbyist? Fire Lotus smiled helplessly and said. Then you guys take your time talking. I'll go find your madam now. I promise to complete the task. With that, she turned and left quickly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Then, with a wave of his hand, Pai Lupi and Theta Wang appeared in front of him. When the two saw Qin Feiyang's group, their faces were filled with excitement. Obviously, they already knew about the 220,000 sea beasts' ultimate laws. It's been 200,000 to 300,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. There should be many disciples in the sacred land who have reached the Dominator realm now. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yes. There are already tens of thousands of disciples in the sacred land who have reached the Dominator realm. One is born almost every few days. However, we don't have many law miniatures left. Pai Lupi said. The law miniatures don't matter. The reason why we're using law miniatures to nurture them now is because time is tight. When we've nurtured enough Sacred Hall disciples to fight against the Death God army, it's best to let them comprehend the law miniatures themselves. Qin Feiyang said. You already know about the Sacred Hall? The two looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. What can be hidden from me about the Black Tortoise world? Qin Feiyang chuckled. The two smiled embarrassedly. Originally, they wanted to give Qin Feiyang a surprise, but they didn't expect him to already know. Regarding the Sacred Hall, I want to reward you. You have a lot of ideas, but you can't be arrogant. Keep up the good work. The future depends on you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. The two bowed and answered. Then they asked expectantly, what reward? Chapter 4406. What kind of reward do you want? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. This. The two lowered their heads and pondered. Right now they had both strength and status. They felt that they had reached the peak of their lives. They really couldn't think of anything. What else did they lack? Madman looked at the two of them and joked. How about this, we'll give each of you a wife. Huh. The two of them looked at Madman with a stunned expression. Madman chuckled and said, you can be considered a promising young man now. It's time to find a woman and start a family. Promising young man? The two smiled bitterly. In the eyes of the Black Tortoise world, they were already old antiques. How could they be worthy of the word young man? But then again, right now they really should think about this problem. At this age, they didn't even have a child. If they were to unfortunately die in battle one day, wouldn't they not have a successor? Thinking of this, the two of them looked at Madman and smiled. Boss Madman, do you have a suitable girl? Girl? At your age, you still want to ruin a little girl. Are you still human? Madman suddenly turned hostile and said angrily. The two of them were stunned. No. Didn't you say it yourself just now that we are all promising young men? You believe whatever I say? Madman grinned. The two of them were helpless. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, about a girl, you should find one yourself. After all, we now believe in free love. Okay, but you have to promise us that you will be our witnesses in the future. Treat this as a reward for us. Pai Lupi chuckled. This is the reward you want. You're too unambitious. Qin Feiyang was speechless. But now we really don't lack anything. It's all your fault. You gave us everything, making us lose the goal to strive for and the joy of life. The two of them looked at Qin Feiyang bitterly. If it was in the past, they would definitely not dare to joke like this. But now they were familiar with Qin Feiyang and were a lot bolder. So it's still my fault? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them in astonishment. If it's not your fault, whose fault is it? The two of them bared their teeth. All right. Then I'll be wrong to the end. Qin Feiyang sighed and said with a smile. Right now, all of you only have 6 ultimate profundities, right? Go find the fire lotus and take the remaining 2 inheritances. This way, you will be able to fuse 8 ultimate profundities. Really? The two of them were overjoyed. If you don't want it, I won't force you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Think about it. Thank you for your praise, Lord Ruler. We will continue to work hard and solve all your worries. The two of them nodded, then turned around and ran towards the Fire Lotus's courtyard. These two fellows are becoming more and more active. I can't find the restraint they had in the past. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. In front of us, there's still a sense of restraint. I think in this world, there is no master who is more reasonable and approachable than us. Madman said proudly. Loki, Loki. White-eyed wolf waved his hand, but his expression was also full of pride. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them echoing each other, and couldn't help but find it funny. He asked, "Then tell me, how should we deal with the king of the underworld and the others?" "It doesn't matter. They have already lost their ultimate profundities. Even if we let them go, what can we do?" Madman said proudly. "That's right. Heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. Let's not kill anymore." "Who said that last time?" "To obtain the power of faith, it seems that we can't kill too much?" White-eyed wolf was suspicious. "Speaking of the power of faith, we have done a lot of good things over the years. Why haven't I felt any power of faith until now?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "This should be something that can't be rushed. Anyway, our strength isn't weak now. Let's leave the power of faith to fate." Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang nodded, got up and appeared in the sky above Soul Ceiling Valley. Everyone was suppressed below. Looking at Qin Feiyang's appearance, whether it was Dong Yi and the others, or the sea beasts like the king of the underworld, their faces were full of resentment. Because now Long Chen had removed his control over them, so they were full of resentment towards Qin Feiyang. "Don't look at me like that. This is a world where the strong preys on the weak. However, I won't kill you. After going out, you all have to take care of yourselves." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and everyone and all the sea beasts instantly disappeared without a trace. The originally crowded Soul Ceiling Valley also became empty. Only one person was left. This was Dong Qin. However, from the beginning to the end, Dong Qin didn't even look at Qin Feiyang. She was like a walking corpse. Qin Feiyang glanced at Dong Qin, didn't say anything, and directly turned around and left. "Qin Feiyang, Golden-Winged Wolf King, Madman Mo, I swear, I will not let you go. And the king of the underworld. Just you wait, when my Central Dynasty army arrives, you all will die." Outside, above the sea, Dong Yi and the others roared again and again, their eyes full of resentment. "What does it have to do with me? Aren't I the same as you all?" The king of the underworld roared. "That's right. You are the one who implicated us and now you're blaming us. If you didn't come to the Taboo Ocean, would Qin Feiyang and the others enter the Taboo Ocean? If it weren't to help you, would we have been killed by them? You really don't know what's good for you." A group of war generals also glared at Dong Yi and the others. "Who are you saying doesn't know what's good for them? Say it again, believe it or not, we will destroy you all." Dong Dayuan roared. Without the control of the soul-controlling art, he was now extremely violent. "So what if I say you all? It's not just you. Everyone from the Central Dynasty is trash. After so many years, you can't even get rid of one Qin Feiyang. You can go back and tell the emperor that if this continues, the divine kingdom will be finished sooner or later." The king of the underworld snorted coldly, and then led a group of war generals and 220,000 sea beasts into the Taboo Ocean, disappearing in a mighty manner. Dong Dayuan and the others looked at each other, and then at the void where the Black Tortoise realm was, and then they all self-destructed their divine souls. This time, they really went for wool and came home shorn. Soon, Qin Feiyang and the others appeared above the sea. Looking at the empty void, the white-eyed wolf bared his teeth and said, "You all ran pretty fast. It wasn't easy to get away. Why don't you run and wait for death here?" The madman laughed and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "Why don't we hunt those 8 people now? If we don't kill them, are we going to keep them alive for the new year?" Qin Feiyang waved his hand and opened a space-time passage. But at this moment, buzz, the divine sound transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He took out the divine sound transmission stone and looked down. A trace of surprise immediately crept onto his face. "What's wrong?" The madman and the white-eyed wolf were suspicious. Qin Feiyang didn't answer. He led the two back to the Black Tortoise realm, and then activated the divine sound transmission stone. A familiar figure appeared. It was the Divine King. The Divine King? The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Wasn't there someone on the Divine Island? Why did he take the initiative to send them a message? The Divine King smiled and said, "I finally contacted you. It seems that you have come out of the taboo ocean. Just came out. Qin Feiyang nodded. What's the result? The Divine King asked. Would there be any accidents if we went out? Not only were there no accidents, we even wiped out all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. What? Wiped out all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean? The Divine King was surprised. What did that mean? Qin Feiyang said. How about this, call the king Ji Yunhai and Ji Zun. We'll find a place to talk face to face. Okay. Let's go to Mount Supreme. The Divine King nodded. Isn't there someone from the Central Dynasty at Mount Supreme? Is it suitable for us to go there now? Qin Feiyang asked. It's fine. The crisis has been temporarily resolved. Go directly to Ji Zun's residence. The Divine King smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. The crisis has been temporarily resolved? What did that mean? The white-eyed wolf frowned and said, Could it be that those 8 people heard something and left already? Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, Let's go to Mount Supreme and find out. Mount Supreme. Ji Yunhai, the king Ji Zun, and the Divine King gathered in a palace. It's finally easy now. Ji Zun chuckled. Yeah. I've been on tenterhooks for the past few days, afraid that I'd give myself away. Ji Yunhai also said as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. The Divine King looked at Ji Yunhai and said, Now you can understand the situation we've been in all these years. Ever since I started working with Qin Feiyang, I've never had a day of peace. Ji Yunhai smiled bitterly. The experience of the past few days had indeed made him realize how difficult it was for the former king, the Divine King, Ji Zun, and Heavenly Lord Ji Wang. A space-time tunnel appeared. The 4 of them looked at the tunnel. 3 young men walked out. It was Qin Feiyang and the other 2. The king looked at the 3 of them and asked curiously, Look at your glowing faces, did you make a fortune? More or less. Madman bared his teeth. The Divine King's face darkened. He glared at Madman and said, Don't keep us in suspense. What did you mean by killing all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean? Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other. Actually, it's nothing much. While we were chasing Dong Yi and the others, we also took care of the Underworld King and the others, and also stole hundreds of thousands of Ultimate Mysteries inheritances. The white-eyed wolf sat on the chair next to them, shook his head and said proudly, So we took care of the Underworld King and the others. The 4 of them suddenly realized. Wait a minute. But the next moment, they looked at each other. Why does that sound wrong? Stole hundreds of thousands of Ultimate Mysteries inheritances? Did they hear it wrong? Hundreds of thousands of inheritances? How could there be so many Ultimate Mysteries inheritances in the taboo ocean? If there really were, they would have joined forces to kill their way to the taboo ocean. Who cares about the Underworld King and the other generals? This was too sudden, so the king and the other 3 couldn't wrap their heads around it. You guys think about it carefully. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The 4 of them lowered their heads, frowning. Previously, they said that they killed all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean. Now, they said that they obtained hundreds of thousands of Ultimate Mysteries inheritances. Sea beasts? Inheritances? Hundreds of thousands? Could it be? The 4 of them suddenly raised their heads and stared at Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Their eyes filled with shock and disbelief. That's right. In the entire taboo ocean, all the sea beasts that have mastered Ultimate Mysteries have been robbed by us. How is it? Surprised. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth, looking very annoying. As soon as these words came out, the king and the other 3 were completely stunned. This is too crazy. They actually stole the Ultimate Mysteries of all the sea beasts. Chapter 4407. How did you guys do it? It's only been about 2 months since we entered the taboo ocean. Ji Yunhai came back to his senses and looked at the 3 of them in confusion. As everyone knows, teleportation is impossible in the taboo ocean. To hunt all the sea beasts that have mastered the ultimate profound is basically more difficult than ascending to the sky. But these three guys succeeded in such a short period of time. It's really hard to imagine. It's very simple. As long as we control the ruler of the taboo ocean, it will be easy to deal with the other sea beasts. Qin Feiyang gave a simple and clear account of what had happened. So that's how it is. The king and the other three suddenly understood, and then couldn't help but give a thumbs up. How many ultimate profound of the strongest law? The divine king was curious. More than 253,000. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? The four of them were shocked to this point. They had never seen so many ultimate profound in their lives. And it was the ultimate profound of the strongest law. Ji Yunhai said very excitedly. If this is the case, don't we now have the strength to fight against the central dynasty? We can't make a judgment on this matter yet. We have to wait for the inner demons and Big Cousin to thoroughly investigate the situation of the Death God army. Qin Feiyang said. Good. Now I can already see hope. I believe that as long as we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat the central dynasty. Ji Yunhai clenched his hands tightly. His eyes were full of confidence. The human race supreme being asked. What about Yu Hui and Min Hong? They are both in my ancient castle. As for the battle souls of these two, I was just about to discuss with you. Qin Feiyang was deep in thought. Go ahead. This matter would have to be faced sooner or later. Because Yu Hui and Min Hong's old enemies were all around Qin Feiyang. And they were all Qin Feiyang's closest people. I have an idea. Use the ultimate inheritance of the strongest law to exchange battle souls with them. Qin Feiyang said. This was also the best way Qin Feiyang could think of at the moment. Exchange battle souls? The supreme master of the human race remained silent. The monarch chuckled and said, Supreme martial artist, the fact that this brat can offer such conditions is already considered extremely benevolent. That's right. If it weren't for you, they would have snatched it away. Moreover, the Eye of Oblivion and the Eye of Destruction are meaningless without evolution. As for Yu Hui and Min Hong, they will never be able to evolve their fighting souls. Because it's impossible for this kid to let Lin Yi and Lu Zhengyang hand over their battle souls for Yu Hui and the others to fuse with. The Divine King added. That was indeed the case. As for the two of them, Qin Feiyang didn't have any feelings towards them. If he wanted to kill them, he would kill them. The reason why he offered this condition was entirely because of the face of the human race's supreme master. The supreme martial artist of the human race looked at the monarch and the divine king. He pondered for a moment and sighed. The battle souls belong to Yu Hui and Min Hong. Their choice is up to them. Madman asked. In that case, should we call them out and talk? That works too. However, we have to pretend that it's a judgment. After all, the two of them still don't know that we have formed an alliance. The Divine King said. Everyone nodded. Yu Hui and Min Hong still couldn't be trusted, and they couldn't be trusted. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, the two of them appeared immediately. Supreme Martial Artist? Divine King. Monarch. When the two saw the monarch and the other two, they were shocked and shouted, Supreme Martial Artist, please save us. Don't worry. We are negotiating with them. Supreme Martial Artist comforted the two. Negotiation? The two were taken aback. The human race Supreme Martial Artist nodded and sighed. Qin Feiyang and the others want you to hand over your battle souls. Impossible. But before the human race Supreme Martial Artist finished speaking, the two shook their heads resolutely. Their attitude was very firm. Aren't you afraid of death? Don't think that with Supreme Martial Artist, the Monarch, and the Divine King here, you are safe. If we want to kill you, the three of them can't stop us. Madman sneered coldly. Yu Hui and Min Hong's pupils shrank. The human race Supreme Martial Artist looked at the two and said, Listen to this Supreme Martial Artist first. Although they want you to hand over your battle souls, they will compensate you. Compensation? The two frowned. What could be more valuable than the strongest battle soul? The human race Supreme Martial Artist said. Their compensation is to give you the inheritance of the strongest law's ultimate meaning. The inheritance of the strongest law's ultimate meaning? The two were stunned. Yes. You are very clear about the rarity of the strongest law's ultimate meaning. As long as you hand over your battle souls, I will give you enough inheritance to let you master the will of the heavens. Qin Feiyang nodded. The will of the heavens. The two's eyes trembled. In this world, who doesn't desire the will of the heavens? Once you master the will of the heavens, you will stand at the peak of the divine kingdom. For example, why can the sovereigns of various races be above all living beings? It's because they master the will of the heavens. Yes, you didn't hear it wrong. The compensation we give you is not just 1 or 2 inheritances, but the will of the heavens. I believe that this compensation should be enough to make up for your loss, Qin Feiyang said. Yu Hui and Min Hong looked at each other, suppressed their excitement and remained silent. They did desire the will of the heavens, but they also desired the evolution of the battle soul, because once their battle soul evolves, it will have the power to destroy the world. As the possessor of the strongest battle soul, I know what you are thinking at this moment. You want both the battle soul and the will of the heavens. But let me tell you, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to give up one. Isn't there a saying that goes like this? You have to give up something to gain something. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The two looked at Qin Feiyang and remained silent. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a woman in a white dress appeared. It was Lin Yi. Lin Yi's appearance immediately attracted Min Hong's attention, because Min Hong was the possessor of the Eyes of Oblivion. When the old enemies met, both sides rejected each other in their hearts. Is she Lin Yi? The divine king Ji Zun and Ji Yunhai asked secretly. I have been in contact with her in the Black Tortoise world. She is a very sensible little girl. The king nodded. Lin Yi looked at Min Hong and immediately understood what Qin Feiyang was doing. She transmitted her voice. Brother Feiyang, didn't I say that I will deal with this matter myself? Elder brother is like a father. How can I listen to you? Qin Feiyang snickered secretly. Lin Yi heard it, and her face was full of helplessness. Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at Min Hong and indifferently said, Do you see? This is your old enemy and your old enemy is my little sister. Do you think that you have the ability to snatch her battle soul from my hands? The words were very plain, and there was no hint of sarcasm. But when it fell into Min Hong's ears, it seemed to be contempt for her. This made her angry. However, what followed was a deep sense of powerlessness. Because this was indeed the case. Lin Yi was Qin Feiyang's sister. If one wanted to take away Lin Yi's battle soul, one must first go through Qin Feiyang. Who was Qin Feiyang? The possessor of the Eyes of Heaven, mastered 3,000 incarnations, the law of life and death, and dual will of heavenly Tao. Even if she had mastered the will of heavenly Tao now, it was impossible to defeat Qin Feiyang. Not to mention her, even the divine king, the king, and Ji Zun had to retreat in the face of Qin Feiyang. In today's 4 great continents, the only people who could suppress Qin Feiyang were the elders of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. As for Yu Hui, your Eye of Destruction will never have the chance to evolve, because the other half of the Eye of Destruction is in my ancestor. Qin Feiyang looked at Yu Hui again. Yu Hui's face couldn't help but turn pale. If it was in someone else's body, they still had hope. But now, whether it was the Eye of Destruction or the Eye of Oblivion, they were both related to Qin Feiyang, and they were Qin Feiyang's close relatives. In the face of such a terrifying Qin Feiyang, how could they find an opportunity to snatch it away? In fact, now there are only 2 choices in front of you. The madman quickly lost his patience and looked at Yu Hui and Ji Zun. The first choice, we will kill you directly and take away your battle souls. The second choice, you hand over your battle souls, and we will compensate you. You have to think carefully. The second choice, although you will lose your battle souls, you can at least master the will of heavenly Tao and become the top powerhouse of the 4 great continents. But if you change to the first choice, then you will not only lose your battle souls, but also your life. The white-eyed wolf laughed. When the two heard the words of the madman and the white-eyed wolf, their eyes couldn't help but tremble. Anyway, your battle souls have no chance to evolve. Why not give it to them in exchange for the will of heavenly Tao? It's worth it. The human clan Ji Zun sighed. The two looked up at the human clan Jizun, and their hearts were extremely sad. The leader of the human clan of the Divine Kingdom not only didn't help them snatch Lin Yi and Lu Xingyang's battle souls, but now he asked them to hand over their battle souls. I know that you will definitely blame me in your hearts, but this is the fact in front of you. Our strength is not as good as theirs. If it weren't for them being afraid of the group of elders of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, I'm afraid they wouldn't even give us a chance to negotiate. The human clan Jizun smiled bitterly. When Yu Hui and Jizun heard this, they bowed their heads in silence. They were really unwilling in their hearts. But now, they really had no other choice. In the end, the two looked at each other, gritted their teeth, looked up at Qin Feiyang, and nodded. Okay, we will give it to you. Qin Feiyang immediately revealed a smile on his face. He said, Isn't this a happy occasion for everyone? Give us the inheritance first. And give us the inheritance of all the laws, including the ultimate mysteries of the ordinary laws. Yu Hui said. Not bad. Using the two strongest battle souls in exchange for these inheritances, I don't think it's too much. Min Hong nodded. The inheritance of all the laws? You guys are really greedy. The madman's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand to stop the madman and smiled faintly. It's okay. It's just a few dozen inheritances. Satisfy them. The human clan Jizun was here. He had to give him face. Chapter 4408. Seeing Madman's murderous intent, the human supreme was a little worried. But when he saw Qin Feiyang stopping Madman and agreeing to Yu Hui's request, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. His mood was like riding a roller coaster, up and down. Tell me, what laws do you still lack? But let's make it clear first. There is no law of light and darkness and law of life and death. Qin Feiyang looked at the two and smiled faintly. The law of light and darkness and law of life and death are rare in the world. Of course, we won't force it. Yu Hui shook his head and said, I need the law of destruction, law of death, law of life. After Yu Hui finished speaking, Min Hong also spoke. Qin Feiyang silently remembered it in his heart. After Min Hong finished speaking, he immediately asked Fire Lotus to prepare. Soon, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and dozens of inheritances appeared in front of him. The ultimate profound of the strongest law and the ultimate profound of the ordinary law. Yu Hui and Lin Ming looked at each other, took a deep breath, and stepped forward to collect all the inheritances. Immediately, the two closed their eyes. Puff! Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spurted out. The two's faces instantly turned pale, as if they were weak. Immediately after, two great battle souls rushed out from between their eyebrows. These were two palm-sized eyes. One was black-gray, full of a destructive aura. The other was silver-white, containing a magical power. Looking at this eye, it seems that you will forget everything. These were the Eye of Destruction and the Eye of Oblivion. Quickly fuse. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Lin Yi and smiled. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. Originally, she wanted to rely on her own ability to defeat this old enemy and get the other half of the Eye of Oblivion. But she didn't expect that Brother Feiyang would send the battle souls to her without doing anything. White-Eyed Wolf looked at Lin Yi speechlessly and said, If it were someone else, they would have jumped for joy. But you, girl, are still a little unhappy? Brother Wolf, don't sow discord. I just don't want to rely on you for everything. Lin Yi looked at him unhappily. Since entering the ancient realm, you don't seem to have relied on us. Hurry up. Let me see how strong the evolved Oblivion Eye is. The white-eyed wolf bared its fangs. All right. Lin Yi nodded. The space between her eyebrows split open. A silver white eye appeared. It was exactly the same as Min Hong's Eyes of Oblivion. When the two Eyes of Oblivion met, they seemed to sense each other's existence. The Eye of Oblivion suspended in front of Min Hong immediately rushed toward the Eye of Oblivion between Min Hong's eyebrows. Boom. Accompanied by a dazzling divine light, the two eyes immediately merged together. There were no changes to its shape or appearance. But both Qin Feiyang and his crew, as well as the monarch's group, could feel a strange force looming over them. Immediately, They could clearly feel that their memories were deteriorating and gradually becoming blurry. Whoosh! Suddenly, Lin Yi raised her head. The eye of oblivion between her eyebrows stared at the human sovereign, the monarch, the divine king, and Ji Yunhai. Boom! In just an instant, the minds of the four men went blank. All their memories disappeared at this moment. It seemed that the monarch and the other three were like four pieces of wood at this moment. So powerful. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other in dismay. Yu Hui and Min Hong were also dumbfounded. The evolved eye of oblivion couldn't even resist the tyrannical existence of the monarch? This made Min Hong couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. Why did she give up such a powerful battle soul to this Lin Yi? If she was the one who evolved the battle soul now, this eye of oblivion alone was enough to stand at the peak of the divine kingdom. For a moment, the regret, jealousy, and resentment in her heart had reached an uncontrollable level. It's all because of this damn Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and the golden-winged Wolf King. They made her lose such a powerful battle soul. You better not let me find a chance, otherwise, I will make you bastards suffer a fate worse than death. This kind of meltdown almost drove her crazy. About a few seconds passed. A powerful will suddenly appeared in the bodies of the divine king, Shizun, and the monarch. This will was their own will, but at the same time, it contained the will of heavenly Tao. With the eruption of will, the three finally broke the control of the eye of oblivion, and the lost memory quickly recovered. But Ji Yunhai didn't recover, because his strength wasn't as good as the monarch and the other two. He sat motionless on the chair with dull eyes like a human-shaped sculpture. So scary. The monarch and the other two looked at Lin Yi with cold sweat all over their bodies. Although they had only lost their memories for a short period of time, it must be known that if they suddenly lost their memories in the middle of a battle, they would definitely be met with a calamity. A few seconds was enough to kill each other in a battle between powerhouses. Sure enough, it was the strongest battle soul. It was not inferior to the Eye of Despair and the Eye of Evil. This Eye of Oblivion was actually similar in nature to the Eye of Despair and the Eye of Evil. It destroyed the opponent's willpower and mental strength. Brother Wolf, it's okay. Lin Yi turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and smiled. Don't look at me. The white-eyed wolf quickly waved his hand. Don't be nervous. I can control the Eye of Oblivion at will. Only the people I want to target in my heart will be deprived of their memory, Lin Yi said. I see. The white-eyed wolf breathed a sigh of relief and immediately gave a thumbs up. There was only one word to describe it: awesome. Lin Yi smiled proudly, then closed the Eye of Oblivion. At this time, Ji Yunhai's memory gradually recovered. When he recovered, he looked up at Lin Yi with fear in his eyes. If the Eye of Oblivion was activated during a battle, it could definitely be regarded as a peerless killing technique. No matter who it was, they would suffer. Seal this Eye of Destruction first and put it in my training room. I will give it to the ancestor when I see him in the future. Qin Feiyang also calmed down the shock in his heart. With a wave of his hand, the Eye of Destruction disappeared. Now, except for the Eye of Reincarnation, the 9 battle souls have evolved. Facing the Central Dynasty, we undoubtedly have a better chance of winning now. The deity king laughed inwardly. Eye of Reincarnation. Qin Feiyang murmured and transmitted his voice. Sovereign, let Yu Hui and Min Hong retreat first. Okay. The human sovereign responded secretly, looked at Yu Hui and Min Hong, and said, You two retreat first. Think about it. It's not too much of a loss to get so many inheritances. Yes. The two nodded respectfully and turned to leave the hall. Min Hong, you're not reconciled, right? The two stood outside the hall, looking at the door that was quickly closing. Yu Hui clenched his hands and transmitted his voice. Min Hong nodded. The power of the Eye of Oblivion after its evolution was beyond imagination. I'm not reconciled either. But now we have to endure. We have obtained all the inheritances. As long as we integrate these inheritances, we will have a chance to settle the score with them. Yu Hui said secretly. What do you want to do? Min Hong looked at him in surprise. This is not the place to talk. Let's go to my cave house, and we can talk slowly. A murderous intent flashed in Yu Hui's eyes. and he led Min Hong away at lightning speed. Inside the hall, Qin Feiyang looked at the closed door, shook his head and smiled. It seems that these two are very dissatisfied with this matter. It is estimated that in the future, it may become a problem. Is it? The sovereign was suspicious. There was nothing wrong with looking at Min Hong and Yu Hui before. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "They hid it very well, but they can't escape my eyes. I have already sensed the murderous intent in their hearts." Hearing this, the human sovereign couldn't help but frown. Lin Yi turned her head to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "Brother Feiyang, why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said so earlier, I would have directly deprived them of their memories." "What's the use of you depriving them of their memories? Almost everyone in Mount Supreme knows that they have the strongest battle soul. Apart from that, you have deprived the memories of everyone who knows." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "That's true." Lin Yi nodded. "Then let's just get rid of them to avoid future troubles. In the future, when they integrate all the inheritances, it will be quite troublesome if they really play tricks behind the scenes." Madman said. Qin Feiyang chuckled and said, "Senior brother, they are disciples of Mount Supreme. We outsiders can't overstep our authority." The implication was that it was up to the human sovereign to decide what to do. The supreme master of the human clan was silent. Suddenly, he took out the sound transmission god stone. Buzz. A shadow appeared. It was the Great Venerable. "Sir." The Great Venerable bowed. The human sovereign said, "Go and monitor Min Hong and Yu Hui. If they have any evil intentions, kill them directly." "Monitor them? What's the situation?" The Great Venerable was surprised. The human sovereign said, "I'll tell you the specific situation later. Just do as I say." "Okay, I'll go right away." The Great Venerable nodded, and immediately turned off the sound transmission god stone. The human sovereign also put away the sound transmission god stone. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he said unhappily, "You brat, do you really think that I'm so merciful that I can't even bear to kill two disasters?" No. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hands. The human sovereign pursed his lips and said, "Say it. Send them away. What do you want to say?" "The Eye of Reincarnation. I hope that everyone can help me check if the other half of the Eye of Reincarnation is in the 4 great continents." Qin Feiyang looked at the 4 of them and said, "Wait." The white-eyed wolf hurriedly interrupted Qin Feiyang and frowned. "Didn't Dong Zhengyang say that the other half of the Eye of Reincarnation is in the dragons? What are you looking for in the 4 great continents? The range of dragons is too wide. What if it's in the hands of an unknown divine dragon? After all, the divine dragons in the world should logically belong to the dragons. Therefore, there's still a need to investigate thoroughly." Qin Feiyang said. The white-eyed wolf thought for a moment and nodded. "Up to you. That's simple. We'll ask the great venerables below to investigate." The divine king said. "There's one more thing. The oceanic race, the beast race, and the sea beasts of the forbidden ocean have been destroyed one after another, but the human race, the divine race, and the purple gold divine dragon race haven't suffered too much damage yet. The people of the Central Dynasty aren't stupid. Sooner or later, they'll have doubts about this matter, so you have to be prepared in advance and deal with it at any time. You also have to prevent them from secretly monitoring you." Qin Feiyang said. "That makes sense." They nodded. This matter indeed couldn't be careless. Chapter 4409. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and looked at the 4 of them. "Also, help us find someone while you're at it." "Who?" The 4 of them were suspicious. "That mysterious young man." Qin Feiyang looked at the king and said, "Mysterious young man?" The divine king, the human race's supreme being, and Ji Yunhai looked at Qin Feiyang and the king in confusion. The king smiled bitterly. "This mysterious young man is the one who claims to be Qin Batian." "So it's him. He claims to be Qin Batian? What does that mean?" The 3 of them were even more puzzled. "It means that he's not the real Qin Batian, he's an imposter." The king shook his head. "What?" The 3 of them were shocked. This young man who shocked the divine kingdom and even defeated the inner demons, wasn't Qin Batian? I didn't know before. This brat told me when we were in the Black Tortoise world. The king didn't forget to glare at Qin Feiyang. You already knew that he was impersonating Qin Batian? The divine king looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. He didn't hide anything from us. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then, where is the real Qin Batian now? Ji Yunhai asked. According to seniority, he was Qin Baishan's second grandfather, so he was somewhat concerned. We don't know, but we can be sure that his life isn't in danger. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's good. Ji Yunhai nodded and smiled bitterly. How many more things are you hiding from us? Indeed. The king glared at Qin Feiyang and then at the divine king. This matter is related to the Death God army, but I'll tell you about it later. The Death God army. The three of them looked at each other, and their curiosity was piqued. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, what about the 8 people from the Central Dynasty? Speaking of which, it's quite funny. Weren't they in the village at that time? Did they meet you? They felt that their whereabouts had been exposed and that you might attack them, so they destroyed their bodies and souls. Ji Yunhai chuckled. Before they even made a move, the 8 of them were already so scared that they destroyed their own bodies and souls and fled from the 4 great continents. It could be seen how terrifying Qin Feiyang and the others were now. I see. Then they are quite smart. We're really going to hunt them down. The white-eyed wolf grimaced. The monarch and the others exchanged glances and smiled. The divine king asked, have you found out who they are? Yes. They are indeed not from the Death God army. Qin Feiyang nodded. What? Aren't they a little too bold? How dare they pretend to be members of the Death God army? The 4 of them were shocked. This is called seeking riches in danger. They are all from the second direct family of the Central Dynasty. This time, they came to the 4 great continents to find an opportunity to kill us. As for bringing Yu Hui and Min Hong to the Central Dynasty, this was a last-minute plan they came up with. Qin Feiyang smiled. I see. The divine king smiled and said mockingly, but they didn't expect that not only did their plan fail, but they also lost so many people. The second direct family is not strong in the Central Dynasty to begin with. They are simply courting death by doing this. But this also shows that the Central Dynasty is not as united as we thought. Qin Feiyang said. That's for sure. No matter where you are, it's unavoidable for you to cheat and scheme against each other. The monarch nodded, and then changed the topic. He said with a smile. But then again, since you have obtained so many ultimate mysteries this time, shouldn't you take care of us? The meaning behind his words was obvious. He wanted Qin Feiyang to give the 3 races some ultimate mysteries. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He pointed to the door and shouted, Look, someone is eavesdropping. And the 4 of them were shocked and quickly looked at the door. At the same time, Qin Feiyang opened a space-time tunnel. Immediately, he rolled up the madman, white-eyed wolf, and Lin Yi and rushed into the space-time tunnel. The monarch and the other 3 reacted. Looking at the backs of the 4 people in the space-time tunnel, the corners of their mouths kept twitching. They are really cunning. Too stingy. There are so many ultimate mysteries. What's wrong with giving us some? The divine king was unhappy. You should be content. After all, you have given us so much. The human sovereign shook his head and smiled. If he really wanted to give, he would not be polite. He would not give, nor force. Let nature take its course. At the same time, in a cave house, Min Hong and Yu Hui sat opposite each other. The door of the cave house was closed. What's your plan? Min Hong looked at Yu Hui expectantly. My plan is very simple. The people of the Central Dynasty will come sooner or later. At that time, we will assist the Central Dynasty to eradicate these bastards. Yu Hui's eyes flickered with murderous intent. Yes. As long as the Central Dynasty's army arrives, we will have a lot of opportunities, right? Min Hong's eyes lit up. Yes. Also, have you ever thought about a question? Why would Ji Zun, the divine king, the monarch, and Ji Yunhai gather with Qin Feiyang in private? Yu Hui's eyes flickered. Isn't it because of our negotiation? Min Hong frowned. It's not like you don't know the means of Qin Feiyang and the others. They completely control us and force us to hand over the battle souls. Why would they go through so much trouble to negotiate with Jizun and the others? Yu Hui asked rhetorically. Min Hong pondered for a while and said, they seem to have said just now that it is because they are afraid of the elders of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. Those elders are indeed scary, but as long as we don't clash with them, won't we be fine? Look at Qin Feiyang and the others, their whereabouts are uncertain every day. As long as they hide, do you think those elders will be able to find them even if they attack? Yu Hui sneered. What do you mean? Min Hong was more and more confused. What I mean is that this negotiation is completely unnecessary. So I think there must be some secrets that we don't know about. Yu Hui said. Secrets? Min Hong's eyes flickered. Although we can't guess it, as long as we tell the Central Dynasty the truth, they will definitely pay attention to it. I'm not afraid to tell you that not only do I have to deal with Qin Feiyang and the others, but I also have to deal with Jizun. Yu Hui clenched his fists. Deal with Jizun? Min Hong was shocked. That's right. As the leader of the human race, not only did he not help us, he even asked us to hand over the battle souls. What right does he have to continue to be the leader of the human race? Yu Hui's face was filled with hatred. That's true. Why did we enter Mount Supreme? Isn't it because we want Mount Supreme to protect us? But in the end, facing Qin Feiyang and the others, we Jizun don't even dare to breathe loudly. How cowardly. Min Hong couldn't help but feel hatred in her heart. So, we have to endure it now. After we combine all the ultimate powers and join hands with the Central Dynasty, we might be the next supreme being of the humankind. Yu Hui sneered. His ambition was also exposed at this moment. What a bunch of white-eyed wolves. At this moment, a cold, bone-chilling voice rang out. Great Sovereign. The two were shocked and stood up. They looked at the door of the cave. Behind the closed door, a black-robed elder suddenly appeared. It was the Great Sovereign of the human race. At this moment, the Great Sovereign's face was filled with anger. How did this happen? Why is he here? Yu Hui panicked. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I would find it hard to believe that there's such a heartless and ambitious person in Mount Supreme. The Great Sovereign took a step forward, and a terrifying pressure directly imprisoned the two. Great Sovereign, please spare our lives. We were confused for a moment and had such thoughts. Please give us a chance. The two hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to beg for mercy. There won't be another chance. By the way, let me tell you a secret so that you won't die in peace. We have already formed an alliance with Qin Feiyang. When the Great Sovereign said this, the fate of the two was already doomed. In the village, in the sky, Qin Feiyang and the other three walked out of a space-time tunnel. Lin Yi pursed her lips and smiled. Brother Feiyang, aren't you afraid that the king and the others will say that you are stingy? Let them say whatever they want. Qin Feiyang didn't care at all. These inheritances must all be left to the disciples of the sacred ground. As for the three major races, anyway, there was still a long way to go. He still had to fight with the Death God Legion in the future. With so many members of the Death God Legion, there was no need to worry about not getting the ultimate intents. In short, since the three major races chose to form an alliance with him, he would definitely not treat the three major races badly. You are back. Sensing the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others, Boss Ji and a group of elders also walked out of the house quickly. Qin Feiyang nodded, landed in front of a group of elders, pulled Lin Yi to his side, and said with a smile, These are the great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers we mentioned. Great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, she is the owner of the Eyes of Oblivion, Lin Yi greets great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. Lin Yi looked at the group of elders. Sure enough, all of them were unfathomable. She then bowed obediently. Good. I have heard this kid talk about you for a long time. Now that I see you, you are really well-behaved and sensible. When you come here, just treat it as your own home. Don't feel constrained. The group of elders chuckled, looking amiable. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. Swoosh. At this time, Master Ji Jiu also flew over from the back mountain tea garden with Ji Tianyue. Is everything settled? Ji Tianyue asked. It's all settled. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. You are really capable. Ji Tianyue chuckled, looked at Lin Yi, and said suspiciously, Why are you outside? Lin Yi said, I just merged with the Eyes of Oblivion at Mount Supreme, so I wanted to come with Brother Feiyang to meet these great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. Your Eyes of Oblivion has been merged? Ji Tianyue was taken aback. Lin Yi nodded. Old ancestor, do you want to experience the power of the Eyes of Oblivion? The white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Tianyue and grinned. Ji Tianyue's mouth twitched. Although she had never seen the evolved Eyes of Oblivion, she could imagine that it was definitely not an ordinary horror. Who would experience this for no reason? Chapter 44:10. Let's talk inside. In the future, we still have to be careful when we meet, so as not to be seen by others again. Boss Ji sighed. The last time those 3 people suddenly ran over, it almost traumatized him. Indeed, we have to be careful. Qin Feiyang nodded. Now it's a critical moment. We can't take a wrong step. Entering Boss Ji's house, everyone sat together and chatted for a while. Qin Feiyang sent Lin Yi to the Black Tortoise world. He, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf didn't leave the village. They stayed here to cultivate while waiting for news. Now they no longer lack the inheritance of the ultimate profound. What they lack is time. They all need a lot of time to integrate. In a blink of an eye, more than 2 months passed. One morning, Qin Feiyang walked out of the house and looked at Ji Tianyue standing at the village entrance. He walked over with a smile and asked, Old ancestor, what are you looking at? Looking at the scenery here. After leaving the Divine Kingdom for so many years, not only the people here, but even the things here haven't changed much. Ji Tianyue smiled slightly. Maybe great-grandfather and great-grandmother are worried that you won't recognize them when you come back in the future, so they have kept their original appearance. Qin Feiyang smiled. Only you know how to say nice things. Ji Tianyue rolled her eyes at him. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. Ji Tianyue said, Last night, my father sent me a message saying that Yu Hui and Min Hong have been eliminated by the great sage. Already eliminated? Qin Feiyang was taken aback for a moment. He shook his head and sighed. It seems that they are really dishonest. Actually, you also want to kill them, Ji Tianyue said. I won't deny it. If it weren't for the human clan supreme, I would have already done it. Qin Feiyang said. You are right. No matter what kind of person they are disciples of Mount Supreme after all. I have to give face to the human clan supreme. Ji Tianyue smiled. Shouldn't you go to the Black Tortoise world? You can't stay in the village all the time. If someone finds out, our relationship will be exposed. It was because everyone knew that the gate of the Divine Kingdom had been sealed by him. It was impossible for Ji Tianyue to return from the Sky Cloud realm alone. The only explanation was that Ji Tianyue had followed Qin Feiyang back to the Divine Kingdom. Wouldn't that be equivalent to exposing their relationship? Ji Tianyue smiled and said, Indeed, I should go to the Black Tortoise world to cultivate in seclusion. Otherwise, I will definitely become a burden to you in the future. It's fine if you're a burden. I'm afraid that in the future, the reincarnation of the human sovereign will come to me and say that I didn't take good care of you. Qin Feiyang bared his teeth. Ji Tianyue blushed and said angrily, What nonsense are you talking about? The human sovereign is the human sovereign, and the reincarnation of the human sovereign is the reincarnation of the human sovereign. In a sense, they are no longer the same person. Is that what you think? Qin Feiyang was surprised. What else? After reincarnating, he has a new family and new responsibilities. I don't want to disturb him. I also don't want him to be restrained because of his feelings from his previous life. Ji Tianyue smiled. There was no regret in her expression. Family? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said in surprise, Is the reincarnation of the human sovereign already married and has a child? No. The family I'm talking about is that he has a new family. Ji Tianyue shook her head. Not married. Then you still have a chance to continue your previous relationship. Qin Feiyang said. Continue our previous relationship. Don't force yourself on this matter. As long as he has a good life in this life, I'll be satisfied. Ji Tianyue smiled. No complaints and no regrets. Old ancestor, you're really great. If it were me facing the reincarnation of my beloved, I definitely wouldn't be able to do this. If it were the mermaid princess, he would definitely try his best to awaken the memories of her previous life and never let go. Ji Tianyue smiled and said, If you have my experience, you will see a different life. Your experience? Then forget it. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. Being sealed in the land of buried gods for countless years, and having to suffer the torment of various laws, this might be better than death. Scared? Ji Tianyue looked at him in amusement. What am I scared of? I just feel that if I'm sealed in a certain place, it might be a little boring. Qin Feiyang raised his head and said proudly, You don't mean what you say. Ji Tianyue shook her head. Huh? Qin Feiyang laughed dryly and asked curiously, Who is the reincarnation of the human sovereign? Ji Tianyue was speechless. Still not giving up? She said, Actually, you've seen it. I've seen it. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Not only you have seen it, everyone has seen it. Ji Tianyue nodded. Everyone has seen it. Qin Feiyang was stunned. As for the rest, I won't reveal more. If you can guess it, you have the ability. If not, don't force yourself. Send me to the Black Tortoise world. Ji Tianyue smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. After sending Ji Tianyue to the Black Tortoise world, he lowered his head and pondered. Everyone has seen it. Who could it be? Wait. It can't be that mysterious young man, right? Because this young man not only has a mysterious origin, but also has 3,000 incarnations. Don't say it. After thinking about it carefully, there really is such a possibility. What are you standing here thinking about? Why don't you go and cultivate? White-Eyed Wolf and Frenzy walked out, and saw Qin Feiyang standing at the entrance of the village with a heavy heart. They couldn't help but ask in confusion. You came at the right time. Just now, the old ancestor said that we have seen the reincarnation of the human sovereign. I'm thinking, could it be that mysterious young man? Qin Feiyang quickly turned to look at the two and said in surprise. Mysterious young man? Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. Isn't this idea a bit too crazy? Look, this young man's origin is unknown, and he has 3,000 incarnations. The most important thing is that we are not related to him, but he has come to help us again and again. These things don't conform to common sense. Qin Feiyang frowned. When the two heard Qin Feiyang's analysis, they couldn't help but lower their heads and ponder, recalling the scenes when they interacted with the young man. Don't say. The more they thought about it, the more likely it was. If it's really him, then it makes sense for him to help us. However, what's with his origin force? Although the human sovereign's strength was very strong in the sky cloud world, his strength back then doesn't seem to be much now. Could it be that he reincarnated into a good body and became the son of a god of creation? Frenzy was surprised. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf were stunned. This guy's imagination is even richer than theirs. Buzz. Suddenly, the divine sound stone moved. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and took out the divine sound stone. A shadow appeared. It was the human race's supreme being. Greetings, supreme being. Qin Feiyang and the other two bowed. The human race supreme being waved his hand and said, The two things you asked us to investigate have already been found. Please speak. Qin Feiyang's face was full of expectation. The human race supreme being shook his head and said, We have confirmed repeatedly that the eye of reincarnation is indeed not in the 4 continents. A trace of disappointment appeared in Qin Feiyang's heart. The human race supreme being continued, But we have found the whereabouts of this young man. Where? Frenzy quickly asked. The human race supreme being said, We haven't found the specific location, but the last place he appeared seems to be here. What? The taboo ocean? Qin Feiyang and the other two were surprised. Why did the young man run to the taboo ocean? Could it be that he ran to the central dynasty alone? When did this happen? Qin Feiyang asked. The human race supreme being said. A long time ago, before you returned to the sky cloud world. So early? Qin Feiyang frowned. Frenzy said. If he really ran to the central dynasty alone, what should we do? What else can we do? We can only watch. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Without this young man, they couldn't enter the central dynasty at all. What do you mean by that? Don't tell me you want to enter the central dynasty. The human race supreme being looked at the three in surprise. We do have such plans. Because only by entering the central dynasty can we seize the initiative. Moreover, with us holding them back in the central dynasty, you have enough time to fuse with the inheritance. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's too risky. The central dynasty is a tiger's den. Isn't entering the central dynasty the same as sending sheep to the tiger's mouth? The human race supreme being's face was solemn. Not necessarily. Maybe a few wolves will enter the sheep's den. Frenzy bared his teeth. The corner of the human race supreme being's mouth twitched. What kind of joke is this? Your methods are indeed heaven-defying, but the central dynasty is the nest of the divine kingdom's ruler. No matter what, it can't become a sheep's den. Don't worry, we know what to do. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Fine. Consider me worrying for nothing. The human race supreme being shook his head helplessly. In fact, he knew that Qin Feiyang and the others were doing this for the three races. Because when Qin Feiyang and the others entered the central dynasty, the battlefield would be shifted to the central dynasty, and the three races wouldn't be implicated. The war-torn four great continents would gradually return to peace. They would also be able to live a peaceful life without any worries. But because of this, the human race supreme being felt very guilty. Why did Qin Feiyang and the others risk their lives so much? It was all for the living beings of the four great continents. But as the leader of the human race, he couldn't do anything but watch. Fine. You can stay in the four great continents and wait for our good news. Qin Feiyang looked at the human race supreme being and smiled, then turned to the white-eyed wolf and the madman. No matter what, we have to go to the Forbidden Ocean again. Perhaps this young man hasn't entered the central dynasty yet. I hope so. The madman sighed. If the young man was really the reincarnation of the human emperor, they would have to desperately find a way to enter the central dynasty. They couldn't let the human emperor take the risk alone in the central dynasty. Then let's not delay, shall we go now? The white-eyed wolf asked. I think so. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then I'll go tell great-grandfather and great-grandmother. The white-eyed wolf turned and ran toward the village. Don't go, don't go. Don't let them worry about us like the supreme being. Let's go directly. Qin Feiyang opened a space-time tunnel, glanced at the village, and walked in without looking back. The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, smiled, and stepped into the space-time tunnel. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.